Welcome, welcome, welcome to Dark Fanfics. Today we bring you an unforgettable story. What if Harry accidentally touched the Lestrange vault and an ancient marriage contract to Bellatrix activated? Loving our content? Smash that like button and join our family by subscribing. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let the story begin. Chapter 1, The Vault Secret. The dragon roared, its chains rattling against stone as Harry, Ron, and Hermione crouched behind a pillar. The vast cavern of Gringotts stretched around them, their disguises already beginning to fail. Griphook's calculating eyes darted between them and the treasure they sought, Hufflepuff's cup, a Horcrux containing a fragment of Voldemort's soul. "We're running out of time," Hermione whispered, her features shifting back from Bellatrix Lestrange's severe countenance to her own. The polyjuice potion was wearing off faster than expected. "The guards will be here any minute." Harry gripped the sword of Gryffindor tighter. "Then we move now." The Lestrange vault door loomed before them, massive and foreboding, covered in intricate carvings of serpents and stars. Griphook pressed his palm against it, and with an ominous groan, the door swung open. "Remember," the goblin hissed, "touch nothing but the cup." Harry's eyes adjusted to the gloom within. Treasure glittered in mountainous piles, gold coins, jeweled goblets, silver armor, potions in jewel-encrusted flasks, and artifacts whose dark purposes he could only guess at. And somewhere among it all, Hufflepuff's cup. There. Ron pointed toward a high shelf where a small golden cup with two delicately wrought handles glinted in the wandlight. Harry took a careful step forward, then another. The vault felt oppressively silent after the chaos outside. His scar prickled, not with Voldemort's presence, but with something else. Magic, ancient and heavy, hung in the air. "Careful," Griphook warned again. "Everything here is cursed with Gemino and Flagranti. Touch anything, and it will burn and multiply." Hermione levitated a nearby helmet, and immediately it burst into a dozen identical copies, the clatter echoing through the vault as they crashed to the floor, each one blazing hot. "We need to be quick," Harry said, edging around the multiplying helmets. "Levitate me up to the cup." Ron raised his wand. Wingardium Leviosa. Harry felt himself lifted off the ground, floating toward the high shelf. He stretched out his hand, inches from the cup, when the vault door behind them slammed shut with a resounding boom. "Griphook!" Hermione cried. Harry twisted in midair. The goblin was gone, and in the sudden darkness, Ron's spell faltered. Harry plummeted, arms windmilling as he tried to grab anything to break his fall. His hand closed around something cold and metallic. Pain seared through his palm, not the burning of the Flagranti curse, but something deeper, like barbed hooks sinking into his very magic. A blinding silver light erupted from between his fingers. "Harry!" Ron shouted, rushing forward. "Don't touch anything." Harry gasped, trying to release the object, but his fingers wouldn't obey. The silver light pulsed up his arm, mapping out his veins in glowing filaments. The object, a small, tarnished silver box etched with constellations, seemed to melt into his skin, the metal becoming liquid, seeping into his bloodstream. Ancient words in a language he didn't know filled his mind, a contract being read by a voice like the rustling of parchment. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, the light vanished. Harry crashed to the floor, gasping. What was that? Ron helped him to his feet, careful not to touch any of the treasures. Harry shook his head, his palm now marked with a strange, silvery scar in the shape of a curved dagger. "I don't know, but we need to get the cup and get out of here." Hermione, who had maintained her focus despite the chaos, guided the sword of Gryffindor through the cluttered vault with careful spellwork. "Here, use this to hook it." Harry took the sword and stretched it toward the cup, hooking one of its handles. With agonizing slowness, he lowered it until it was within reach. "Got it." He slipped it into his moleskin pouch. "Now we need to," a scream tore through his mind, not his own, but a woman's. Rage, confusion, and something like terror flooded his consciousness. Harry doubled over, clutching his head. Harry? Hermione grabbed his shoulder. What's wrong? I don't, he began, but another wave hit him. Images flashed behind his eyes, a grand manor house, a masked figure bowing, a wand slashing through air. And with each image, emotions that weren't his, fanatical devotion, sadistic pleasure, and beneath it all, a deep, festering wound of betrayal. It's her, he choked out. Bellatrix. I can feel her. She knows something's happened. Ron's face paled beneath his freckles. How is that possible? Before Harry could answer, the vault door swung open again. Wand light blazed, and goblin voices barked orders. They're here. Hermione grabbed both boys. We need to go now. The three friends burst from the vault into chaos. Goblins and wizards converged from all directions, spells flashing. Through the confusion, Harry spotted the dragon, still chained but agitated by the commotion. This way, he shouted, pulling Ron and Hermione toward the beast. As spells ricocheted around them, Harry's mind still reeled from the foreign presence inside it. Somewhere far away, Bellatrix Lestrange was experiencing the same invasion, his fear, his determination, his confusion bleeding into her consciousness just as hers bled into his. Hermione, always quickest to understand, blasted apart the dragon's chains with a well-aimed reductor curse. The beast reared up, flames erupting from its nostrils. Are you mental? Ron shouted. It's our only way out. Hermione climbed onto the dragon's back, extending her hand. Come on. Harry and Ron scrambled up after her. The dragon, sensing freedom, needed no encouragement. It launched itself upward, crashing through stalactites and narrow passages, clawing its way toward daylight. As they burst through Gringotts' marble facade into the open air of Diagon Alley, Harry felt the presence in his mind sharpen. Bellatrix knew exactly where he was now, and he knew exactly where she was. Malfoy Manor, in Voldemort's inner sanctum, her mind racing to make sense of what had happened. The dragon soared higher, carrying them away from London, but Harry knew with sinking certainty that distance wouldn't sever this connection. Whatever had happened in that vault had bound them together in ways he didn't yet understand. And somewhere in Wiltshire, Bellatrix Lestrange screamed with rage. Bellatrix's scream echoed through the vast drawing room of Malfoy Manor, causing even the most hardened Death Eaters to flinch. She clutched her left palm, where a silvery mark had appeared without warning, a curved dagger that seemed to shimmer with its own light. What is the meaning of this interruption, Bella? Lord Voldemort's cold voice cut through her cries. He sat at the head of the long table, Nagini coiled at his feet, his red eyes narrowed with impatience. Bellatrix fell to her knees, her wild black hair cascading around her face. My lord, forgive me, but something has happened, she broke off as another wave of foreign emotion crashed through her mind. Fear, exhilaration, desperation. Potter. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Potter. Potter is in my vault. Voldemort stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. What? I can feel him, my lord. Bellatrix's voice trembled with rage and confusion. He's in my vault at Gringotts. He's taken something. How can you know this? Voldemort glided toward her, his robes whispering across the marble floor. Bellatrix raised her palm, showing the strange mark. Magic, ancient magic. I felt it activate. And now. She pressed her other hand to her temple. Now I can feel him in my mind. Lucius Malfoy, seated partway down the table, exchanged a glance with his wife. The Black family artifacts, he murmured. Bellatrix, did you store any marriage contracts in your vault? Bellatrix's head snapped up, her heavy-lidded eyes widening with dawning horror. Marriage contracts? No, those would be in the Black Vault. Unless. She frowned, trying to remember through the haze of Azkaban-damaged memories. Rodolphus might have moved some items before his arrest. Consolidating assets. It seems, Voldemort said, his voice dangerously soft, that Potter has triggered a magical contract of some kind. One that now connects you to him. Impossible. Bellatrix shrieked, clawing at her own arm as if she could tear out the magic. I am yours, my lord, only yours. I would never, be still, Bella. Voldemort placed a pale, long-fingered hand on her shoulder. This could be, useful. Tell me, what exactly do you feel from the boy? Bellatrix forced herself to calm, to focus on the alien presence in her mind. He's escaping. Flying. He has, companions. The blood traitor Weasley and the mudblood. She closed her eyes, concentrating harder. He has something from my vault. Something important. Voldemort's fingers dug painfully into her shoulder. What has he taken, Bella? A flash of gold behind her eyes, a small cup with two handles. She'd seen it before, when the Dark Lord entrusted it to her care. The cup, my lord. The cup you gave me to protect. Voldemort's fury erupted like a physical force, shattering windows and sending furniture flying. Death Eaters dove for cover as he unleashed a wordless howl of rage. He knows. Voldemort turned on the assembled Death Eaters. Potter knows about the Horcruxes. Bellatrix, still on her knees, felt a chill unlike any she'd experienced before. Horcruxes, plural. The cup was a Horcrux. A piece of her master's soul. And there were more. Through the chaos of Voldemort's wrath, she felt something else from her unwanted connection to Potter, grim satisfaction. He'd found what he was looking for. And worse, she could sense that this wasn't his first such discovery. As objects shattered around her, Bellatrix remained unnaturally still, processing this revelation. She had failed to protect a piece of her master's soul. Nothing could be worse than that failure. Except perhaps being magically bound to the very wizard destined to destroy him. Miles away, clinging to the back of a dragon soaring over the countryside, Harry grimaced as Voldemort's rage filtered through his connection with Bellatrix. He knows we've got the cup, he told Ron and Hermione, shouting over the wind. And he knows we're hunting Horcruxes. How do you know? Ron called back. Harry gestured to his head. I can feel it through her. She's at Malfoy Manor with him. He's furious. Hermione's eyes widened with understanding. The object you touched in the vault, it created some kind of connection between you and Bellatrix. It looks that way. Harry showed them his palm with the silvery dagger mark. And I think I know what it was. A marriage contract. A what? Ron nearly fell off the dragon. Magical families used to arrange marriages with contracts that would activate when triggered by the right person, Hermione explained, her academic instincts kicking in despite their precarious situation. They're supposed to be illegal now, but pure-blood families probably still keep them. So you're saying, Ron looked ill, that Harry is magically married to Bellatrix Lestrange? I don't know, Harry admitted. But whatever it is, it's created a connection. I can feel what she feels, see what she sees. Just like with you-know-who, Hermione said grimly. Harry nodded. Except different. With Voldemort, it's mostly when he's feeling something strongly, or when he lets me in. This feels, constant. Like a door that can't be closed. The dragon began to descend toward a lake. Its scales had been damaged by long captivity, and it clearly wanted to suit them in the water. We'll have to jump when it gets low enough, Harry said. As the dragon skimmed the surface of the lake, the three friends slid off its back into the cold water. They swam to shore and collapsed on the bank, soaking and exhausted. Hermione immediately began casting protective enchantments around them while Ron conjured blankets. Harry sat with his head in his hands, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions and images still flooding his mind. I can feel her panic, he said quietly. She's terrified that she's failed Voldemort. The cup was important to him, obviously, it's a Horcrux, but there's something else. He frowned, concentrating. She's afraid of the connection too. Afraid of what I might learn. Can she see your thoughts as well? Hermione asked, alarmed. I think so. Not clearly, it's like looking through murky water, but enough to be dangerous. Ron wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. So we've got the Horcrux, but at what cost? You're mentally linked to Voldemort's most devoted follower. We need to research magical contracts, Hermione said decisively. There might be a way to break it. And in the meantime? Harry looked up at his friends. What do we do about this? He held up his marked palm. We use it, Hermione said after a moment's thought. If you can see through Bellatrix's eyes, maybe you can find out where the remaining Horcruxes are. Or where Voldemort is planning to strike next, Ron added. Harry nodded slowly. It made tactical sense, but the thought of deliberately opening himself to Bellatrix's mind, a mind warped by fanaticism, Azkaban, and unspeakable cruelty, filled him with dread. I'll try, he said. But I need to learn how to control it first. Right now, it's just chaos. As if in response to his words, a new image flashed through his mind, Bellatrix standing before a mirror, her sleeve pulled up to reveal the dark mark. But what caught Harry's attention was her expression, not the manic glee he associated with her, but something more complex. Fear, certainly, but also a strange sort of wonder as she traced the silver dagger mark on her palm. For the briefest moment, he felt something from her that made no sense, recognition, as if she'd seen the mark before, in another context she couldn't quite remember. Then the connection snapped shut as she noticed his presence in her mind. Potter, she hissed, and Harry could hear her as clearly as if she stood before him. Get out. Harry jolted back to awareness of his surroundings. Ron and Hermione were staring at him with concern. She felt me watching, he explained. She can push me out when she realizes I'm there. That's good to know, Hermione said pragmatically. It means you can probably do the same. But there's something else. Harry frowned. I think she recognized the mark on our hands. Not clearly, it was like a half-forgotten memory, but she's seen it before. So this contract might be older than we thought, Hermione mused. Perhaps something from the Black family archives. We need to get to Grimmauld Place, Harry decided. If anyone would have information about Black family marriage contracts, it would be there. Harry, Grimmauld Place isn't safe anymore, Hermione reminded him gently. Yaxley grabbed me when we disapparated from the ministry, remember? We can't go back. Reality crashed back down on Harry. Of course they couldn't go to Grimmauld Place. They couldn't go anywhere familiar. They were still in the middle of a war, still hunting Horcruxes, still running for their lives. And now he was magically bound to one of his worst enemies. Let's focus on what we can control, he said finally. We've got the cup. We need to destroy it. Then we figure out what the next Horcrux is. Ron nodded firmly. One problem at a time, mate. They set up their tent and strengthened their protective enchantments. As night fell, they took turns keeping watch while Harry attempted to sort through the new presence in his mind. Bellatrix's consciousness was unlike anything he'd experienced before. Where Voldemort's mind was cold, calculating, and relentlessly focused, hers was a storm of conflicting impulses. Moments of razor-sharp clarity gave way to confused fragments of memory. Childlike wonder clashed with sadistic cruelty. And beneath it all ran a current of absolute devotion to Voldemort that bordered on religious fervor. When Harry's turn at watch came, he sat at the entrance of the tent and cautiously prodded at the connection. Bellatrix was asleep, her dreams a chaotic swirl of disjointed images, a grand mansion unlike Malfoy Manor, two younger girls with her same dark hair, a handsome young man with cold eyes. Fragments of her life before Azkaban, before Voldemort. Harry pulled back. It felt wrong to witness these glimpses of Bellatrix as a person with a past, a family, a life before she became the monster he knew. He didn't want to humanize her. Yet as he turned his attention to the cup they'd stolen, He couldn't help wondering, what had turned Bellatrix Lestrange into Voldemort's most devoted lieutenant? Was she born cruel, or had she been twisted by circumstance and choice? The questions unsettled him almost as much as the connection itself. Morning at Malfoy Manor brought no relief to Bellatrix. She'd barely slept, her dreams invaded by strange visions, a tent in a forest, a bushy-haired mudblood poring over books, a red-haired blood trader complaining about hunger. Potter's life, seeping into her subconscious. She paced the length of her bedchamber, trying to make sense of the silver mark on her palm. It nagged at her, like a word on the tip of her tongue. She'd seen it before, she was certain, but Azkaban had fractured her memories, leaving gaps she couldn't bridge. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she snapped. Narcissa slipped into the room, closing the door quietly behind her. Unlike most days when her younger sister was immaculately groomed, this morning Narcissa looked strained, her posture rigid with tension. "The Dark Lord wishes to see you," she said without preamble. Bellatrix straightened, smoothing her wild hair. "Of course. I shall attend him immediately." "Bella." Narcissa caught her arm as she moved toward the door. "Be careful. He's not himself this morning." Bellatrix bristled. "The Dark Lord is always himself, sissy. It is we who must adapt to his glory, not question it." Narcissa's blue eyes, so unlike Bellatrix's heavy-lidded dark ones, held something like pity. "This connection to Potter, it concerns him greatly." "As it should." Bellatrix hissed. "It's an abomination. But I will use it to serve him. I will extract Potter's secrets and lay them at our Lord's feet. Just remember," Narcissa said softly, "that some bonds can't be broken by will alone. Magic this old follows its own rules." Bellatrix yanked her arm free. "My only bond is to the Dark Lord. Everything else is meaningless." She swept from the room, her black robes billowing behind her. As she descended the grand staircase of Malfoy Manor, she forced her mind into order, building mental walls against the foreign presence that had invaded it. Potter would get nothing from her today. The Dark Lord awaited her in Lucius's study, standing by the window with his back to the door. Sunlight cast his tall, thin silhouette in sharp relief against the glass. "My lord," Bellatrix dropped to her knees. "You wish to see me?" Voldemort turned slowly. His serpentine features were composed, but Bellatrix could sense the rage simmering beneath his calm facade. "Rise, Bella." His high, cold voice betrayed nothing. "Tell me about this connection. What have you learned?" Bellatrix stood, keeping her eyes respectfully lowered. "Potter is in a forest, my lord, though I cannot determine exactly where. The mud-blood has cast protective enchantments. They have the cup, but they don't yet know how to destroy it." "And what have they learned from you?" The question sent a chill down Bellatrix's spine. "Nothing, my lord. I have guarded my thoughts carefully." "Have you?" Voldemort glided closer. "When I entered your mind last night, I found it permeable. Thoughts leaking through cracks. Memories rising unbidden." Bellatrix blanched. "My lord, silence." He circled her slowly, like a predator. "This connection poses a grave threat, Bella. If Potter learns too much through you, all could be lost." "I would die before betraying you," Bellatrix whispered fervently. "That may not be necessary." Voldemort stopped before her. "This binding contract, we shall use it to our advantage. You will allow certain thoughts to reach Potter, false leads, misleading information. Make him believe the Horcruxes are hidden where they are not." Hope surged through Bellatrix. "Yes, my lord. I can plant false memories, lead him astray, but first," Voldemort cut her off, "we must understand the nature of this bond. What exactly did Potter activate in your vault?" Bellatrix frowned, concentrating. "I believe, it was a marriage contract, my lord. An old one, possibly predating my marriage to Rodolphus." She hesitated. The mark it left. I've seen it somewhere before. Where? Voldemort demanded. I don't remember clearly. Azkaban. She trailed off. The years in prison had taken much from her, including many memories of her life before. Then we shall have to recover that knowledge. Voldemort raised his wand. Legilimens. Bellatrix gasped as he tore into her mind, not with the gentle probing he typically used with his favored lieutenant, but with brutal force. He ripped through her memories, searching for any trace of the silver dagger mark. Images flashed painfully through Bellatrix's consciousness, her childhood at Black Manor, lessons in the dark arts from her father, her marriage to Rodolphus Lestrange, her first meeting with the young Lord Voldemort, the pride she'd felt when he marked her as his own. Then, buried deep beneath layers of Azkaban-induced trauma, a memory surfaced, a leather-bound book in the Black family library, its pages yellow with age. A teenaged Bellatrix tracing her finger over illustrations of magical contracts, fascinated by their power. And there, on a page about the most binding agreements, the silver dagger mark, the sigil of an unbreakable marriage bond. Interesting, Voldemort murmured, withdrawing from her mind. Very interesting indeed. Bellatrix swayed on her feet, dizzy from the mental invasion. What is it, my lord? It seems, Bella, that young Potter has inadvertently triggered one of the oldest forms of magical contract known to wizardkind. The unbreakable marriage bond cannot be severed except by death, and sometimes, not even then. Horror dawned on Bellatrix's face. But my lord, I am already married to Rodolphus. Voldemort waved a dismissive hand. A mere legal formality. This bond supersedes all others. Magically speaking, you now belong to Harry Potter. No. The word tore from Bellatrix's throat. I belong only to you, my lord. My devotion, my life, my soul, all yours. Your devotion, yes. Your life, certainly. But your magic? Voldemort's lipless mouth curved in a cold smile. That now answers to two masters. And therein lies our opportunity. He turned away, pacing the length of the study. This bond will draw you and Potter together. It is inevitable. The magic will not be denied. When the moment comes, when he seeks you out, as he must, you will be ready. You will be my most perfect trap. Bellatrix's racing thoughts suddenly froze. The bond would draw them together. Potter would come to her. And when he did, a smile spread across her face, manic and gleeful. I understand, my lord. When Potter comes for me, I shall deliver him to you. Good. Voldemort nodded approvingly. In the meantime, learn to control this connection. Discover its limits, its vulnerabilities. And prepare yourself, Bella. The time is coming when you must make a choice between two bonds, the one you willingly took, and the one thrust upon you. As he dismissed her, Bellatrix felt the foreign presence in her mind stir. Potter, awake now, brushing against her consciousness. With newfound purpose, she relaxed her mental barriers just enough to let a single thought reach him, I'm waiting for you, Potter. Come find me. She felt his shock, his instinctive recoil, and smiled to herself. Let him fear the connection. Let him fight it. It would make no difference in the end. Magic this old had a will of its own, and it would not be denied. The unbreakable marriage bond would bring Harry Potter to her. And she would bring Harry Potter to Lord Voldemort. Harry jerked awake, his heart pounding. He dozed off during his watch, and in that moment of vulnerability, Bellatrix had reached out to him. I'm waiting for you, Potter. Come find me. The words echoed in his mind, taunting and dangerous. Worse than the words was the feeling behind them, anticipation, predatory and patient. Whatever this connection was, Bellatrix intended to use it against him. Harry. Hermione emerged from the tent, her hair tousled from sleep. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. She contacted me. Harry rubbed his scar, not the lightning bolt, which remained mercifully quiet, but the silver dagger mark on his palm. Bellatrix. She's figured out how to send thoughts through the connection. Hermione sat beside him, instantly alert. What did she say? She's waiting for me to come find her. Harry frowned. Voldemort knows about the bond. He's planning to use it somehow. Of course he is, Hermione said grimly. This is exactly what we feared. Inside the tent, Ron stirred and joined them, blinking sleep from his eyes. What's going on? As Harry explained, Ron's expression grew increasingly troubled. So you know who is setting a trap, using Bellatrix as bait, he summarized. That's just brilliant. It gets worse, Harry said. While you were both sleeping, I tried to sort through some of what I'm getting from Bellatrix. This bond, it's called an unbreakable marriage bond. According to what Voldemort pulled from Bellatrix's memories, it can't be broken except by death. Hermione gasped. Unbreakable marriage bond? Harry, those were banned centuries ago precisely because they're so powerful and permanent. They literally bind the magic of two people together. What does that mean exactly? Harry asked, dreading the answer. It means, Hermione said slowly, that on a fundamental magical level, you and Bellatrix are now considered one entity. Your magics are linked. Over time, this could affect your spellcasting, your magical strength, even your personalities. That's mental. Ron exclaimed. Harry can't be magically merged with that psychopath. It's already happening, Harry admitted quietly. I can feel her all the time now, in the back of my mind. And sometimes. He hesitated, not wanting to voice his greatest fear. Sometimes what? Hermione prompted gently. Sometimes I can't tell where my thoughts end and hers begin. Harry stared at his hands. Last night, I was thinking about the cup, about how to destroy it. And suddenly I was remembering holding it, putting it in the vault, feeling proud that I was protecting something precious for the Dark Lord. He looked up at his friends, his eyes haunted. Those weren't my memories. They were hers. But they felt like mine. A heavy silence fell between them. The implications were too terrible to contemplate fully, Harry, slowly absorbing aspects of Bellatrix Lestrange's personality. Her cruelty, her fanaticism, her madness. We need to break this bond, Ron said firmly. There has to be a way. If it's truly an unbreakable marriage bond, there isn't, Hermione said. But I need to research it properly. Maybe there are loopholes, exceptions. In the meantime, Harry said, we stick to the plan. We destroy the cup. We find the remaining Horcruxes. We end Voldemort. If this bond can only be broken by death, then maybe it will dissolve when Bellatrix dies in the fighting. Even as he said it, Harry felt an unexpected pang at the thought, not his own emotion, he realized with horror, but an echo of Bellatrix's fear of failure, of letting down her master, of dying before she could fulfill her purpose. He pushed it away, disgusted with himself. I need to learn to control this connection, he said. To take from her without giving anything back. If Voldemort plans to use her as a trap, maybe we can turn it around on him. Hermione nodded thoughtfully. A clemency might help. I know you struggled with it before, but, this feels different from the connection with Voldemort, Harry interrupted. Less hostile, more, integrated. I don't think traditional clemency will work. Then we'll have to improvise, Hermione said. Try different approaches until we find something that helps. They spent the morning packing up camp and discussing their next move. The Sword of Gryffindor could destroy the cup, but using it meant one less tool for any future Horcruxes they discovered. We should save it for the snake, Ron suggested. Since that'll likely be the hardest to get to. But how do we destroy the cup without the sword? Harry asked. Basilisk venom, Hermione said suddenly. That's what makes the sword effective against Horcruxes in the first place. If we could get back into the Chamber of Secrets. You want to go back to Hogwarts? Ron stared at her. That's suicide. The place is crawling with Death Eaters now. Maybe not right away, Hermione conceded. But eventually, we'll need to. I think there's another Horcrux hidden there anyway. What makes you say that? Harry asked. Voldemort's obsession with the school. His request to teach there. And where better to hide a piece of your soul than the first place that ever felt like home? Hermione gave Harry a significant look, knowing he'd understand that particular sentiment. As they debated their options, Harry felt the connection to Bellatrix shift. She was moving, traveling somewhere. He closed his eyes, focusing on the impressions coming through. A forest, much like the one they were in. A clearing with a circle of stones. Other figures in dark robes, Death Eaters, gathering for some purpose. And a strange, thrumming anticipation in Bellatrix's mind, centered around an object she carried, a small golden box. Harry's eyes snapped open. They're performing some kind of ritual. Bellatrix has an artifact, something related to the bond. Where? Ron asked. I can't tell exactly. A forest with a stone circle. But it's happening soon, today. Harry stood up abruptly. We need to stop them. Whatever they're planning, it can't be good. Harry, we can't just rush off without knowing more, Hermione protested. It could be a trap. It probably is a trap, Harry agreed. But this bond is dangerous in ways we don't fully understand yet. If they're trying to weaponize it somehow, we need to intervene. Ron and Hermione exchanged worried glances. At least let me try to get more information first, Hermione pleaded. If I can identify the ritual they're preparing, we'll have a better idea of what we're facing. Harry reluctantly agreed. While Hermione consulted her books, he closed his eyes again, deliberately reaching for the connection this time, pushing past Bellatrix's surface thoughts to the memories beneath. The golden box. He focused on that, trying to understand its significance. Images flooded his mind, Bellatrix receiving the box from Voldemort earlier that morning. His instructions, spoken in that high, cold voice, the ritual must be performed at midday. This will strengthen your connection to Potter, allowing you to influence rather than merely observe. Bellatrix's eagerness, her devotion. Her question, and it won't break the bond. Voldemort's lipless smile. No, Bella. It will transform it into a weapon. Harry pulled back, alarmed. They're going to modify the bond somehow. Make it more one-sided, give Bellatrix more control. When? Hermione looked up from her books. Midday. Today. Harry checked his watch. We have less than 2 hours. Hermione bit her lip. I think I know what ritual they're using. It's called the dominance assertion. It's designed for magical contracts where one party wants to take control from the other. Can we stop it? Ron asked. Yes, but we'd need to be there in person. The ritual requires physical proximity to work fully. Hermione closed her book with a snap. Harry, can you get a clearer sense of where they are? Harry concentrated again, pushing deeper into Bellatrix's mind. This time, he encountered resistance. She'd realized he was watching and was trying to block him. But the bond between them was too new, too raw for either to fully control. As Harry pressed against her mental barriers, they yielded enough for him to catch glimpses of her surroundings. Ancient oak trees. A circle of weathered standing stones covered in moss. And in the distance, visible through a break in the trees, a familiar skyline. They're near Edinburgh, he said, opening his eyes. In a forest with a stone circle overlooking the city. Crumb's Hill, Hermione said immediately. It's an old druidic site. Supposedly has strong magical properties. How do you know that? Ron asked, impressed. Hogwarts, a history mentions it as one of the locations considered before they settled on Hogsmeade for the school. Hermione was already packing her beaded bag. It's known for amplifying ritual magic. Harry stood up, decision made. Then that's where we're going. We can't let them complete this ritual. Harry, it's definitely a trap, Ron warned. I know. But what choice do we have? Harry met his friend's worried gazes. This bond is dangerous enough already. If they modify it to give Bellatrix control over me. He didn't need to finish the thought. The implications were clear: Harry Potter, the chosen one, potentially under the influence of Voldemort's most devoted follower. We'll go, Hermione said firmly. But we need a plan. We can't just apparate into the middle of a Death Eater gathering. As they hastily prepared, Harry felt Bellatrix's presence grow stronger in his mind. She'd stopped trying to block him. Instead, he felt her anticipation, her certainty that he would come. The trap was set, and she fully expected him to walk into it. What she didn't know, what Voldemort couldn't anticipate, was that the bond worked both ways. Even as she gained impressions of Harry's intentions, he gained insights into hers. He knew the ritual required her to stand at the center of the stone circle. He knew Voldemort wouldn't be present. He'd sent her with Rodolphus, Rabastin, and 3 other Death Eaters as guards. And most importantly, he knew that the ritual had to be completed in a specific sequence, with Bellatrix's blood, freely given, as the final component. I have an idea, he told Ron and Hermione as they prepared to disapparate. It's risky, but it might just work. He explained his plan quickly. It wasn't foolproof, and it depended on perfect timing, but if they succeeded, they might not only stop the ritual but turn the bond against Bellatrix and Voldemort. Harry, that's incredibly dangerous, Hermione said when he finished. If anything goes wrong, it's all dangerous, Harry cut her off. But we can't let them weaponize this bond. Ron gripped Harry's shoulder. We're with you, mate. Always. With a final check of their supplies and a silent prayer that his plan would work, Harry took his friend's hands. They turned on the spot and vanished with a crack, heading straight into Bellatrix's trap, but with a few surprises of their own. Crumbs Hill rose above the outskirts of Edinburgh, its ancient stone circle nearly hidden among gnarled oak trees. To Muggle eyes, it was simply an archaeological site, off the beaten path and rarely visited. But to magical folk, it hummed with power, the stones vibrating with centuries of accumulated magic. Bellatrix stood at the circle's center, the golden box open before her. Inside lay a curved silver dagger, the physical manifestation of the mark now emblazoned on her palm. The ritual was simple enough. At precisely midday, when the sun reached its zenith, she would use the dagger to draw her blood, willingly given, while reciting the incantation Voldemort had taught her. The magic would shift the balance of the bond, giving her greater influence over Potter's mind while protecting her own. It's almost time, Rodolphus said, checking his pocket watch. Her husband, though, as Voldemort had pointed out, that was now merely a legal technicality, showed no emotion about her new magical marriage to Potter. Rodolphus had always understood that her true devotion belonged to the Dark Lord. Her marriage to him was merely a convenient alliance between pure-blood families. 5 more minutes, Bellatrix murmured, her eyes on the sky. The clouds had parted, allowing the midday sun to shine directly upon the stone circle, just as the ritual required. Rabastin and the other Death Eaters patrolled the perimeter, wands at the ready. They expected Potter to come. The bond would draw him here once the ritual began, but they needed to ensure he couldn't interfere until the crucial moment. As the minute hand on Rodolphus's watch inched closer to noon, Bellatrix closed her eyes, reaching along the bond for Potter's presence. He was closer now, much closer than before. She could feel his determination, his focus, and something else, something that made her frown. Confidence. Potter felt confident, not afraid. As if he knew something she didn't. Her eyes snapped open. He's here already, she hissed to Rodolphus. Warn the others. Rodolphus signaled to his brother, who immediately tightened the patrol pattern. But as they searched the surrounding forest, Bellatrix kept her attention on the bond. Potter wasn't trying to hide his presence from her anymore. In fact, he seemed to be waiting. Letting her sense him deliberately. "What are you playing at, Potter?" she whispered. The answer came not through the bond, but from the sky above. A crack like thunder split the air, and 3 figures on broomsticks dove toward the stone circle, moving so fast they were little more than blurs. "There!" shouted one of the Death Eaters, firing a curse that missed widely. Bellatrix snatched up the silver dagger, her focus narrowing to the ritual. If she could just complete it before Potter reached her, the advantage would be hers. But as she raised the dagger, preparing to slice her palm, a strange sensation washed over her, a wave of foreign emotion so powerful it made her stumble. Not Potter's emotions, but something else, something being channeled through their connection. Memories. Not her own, but his, the Department of Mysteries, her curse hitting Sirius Black square in the chest, his body arcing gracefully as he fell through the veil. Potter's grief, his rage, his hatred for her in that moment, all of it crashed through their bond like a tidal wave, overwhelming her. "No," she gasped, fighting to regain her focus. "Not now." Above, the 3 figures separated. 2, the Blood Traitor and the Mudblood, she assumed, engaged the Death Eaters in a fierce aerial battle, spells lighting up the sky. But the 3rd figure, Potter himself, dove directly toward the center of the stone circle. Toward her. Bellatrix raised her wand, a killing curse on her lips, but another wave of memories hit her: Dumbledore's death, the locket Horcrux, the cup they'd stolen from her vault. Potter was deliberately flooding her mind with information, distracting her from the ritual. "Rodolpheus," she screamed. "Stop him." Her husband moved to intercept, but a well-aimed stunner from above, the Mudblood girl, showing unexpected precision, caught him in the shoulder, sending him spinning to the ground. Potter was seconds away now, his green eyes locked on hers, his intent clear, to stop the ritual at any cost. With a final, desperate effort, Bellatrix slashed the dagger across her palm, her blood dripping onto the golden box as she began the incantation, Vinculum Dominari, but before she could complete the phrase, Potter crashed into her, his momentum carrying them both to the ground. The dagger flew from her grasp, landing just beyond reach. "It's over, Bellatrix," Potter said, his wand pressed to her throat. "The rituals failed." Bellatrix laughed, high and manic. "Is it, Potter? The bond still exists. You're still mine." "That works both ways," he replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around them as Ron and Hermione battled the remaining Death Eaters. "You're also mine." Before Bellatrix could respond, Potter grabbed her marked hand with his own. The silver dagger symbols touched, and a jolt of magic surged between them, so powerful it momentarily blinded them both. In that blinding moment of connection, something unexpected happened. The barriers between their minds collapsed entirely, memories flowing freely in both directions. Bellatrix saw, a cupboard under stairs, a boy curled in darkness. A mirror showing parents who would never return. A graveyard, a returned Dark Lord, a dead schoolmate. Loss after loss after loss, yet somehow, an capacity for love that refused to die. And Harry saw, a grand house, full of dark expectations. A father who valued blood purity above his daughter's happiness. A young woman seeking power to escape the cage of societal expectations. Voldemort, young and charismatic, offering that power, that escape. Azkaban, Dementors feeding on every happy memory until only devotion and madness remained. "Stop," Bellatrix whispered, trying to pull away. "Stop." But the magic held them fast, forcing understanding where there had been only hatred. Not forgiveness, some things could never be forgiven, but a terrible, unwanted comprehension of how each had become who they were. When the light finally faded, Harry stood shakily, pulling Bellatrix to her feet with him. Around them, the battle had paused, the combatants staring at the strange spectacle they'd just witnessed. "It's done," Harry said, his voice hoarse. "The ritual failed, but the bond remains." Neither of us controls it. Bellatrix's eyes, usually so full of manic glee or rage, held something new, uncertainty. The absolute conviction that had driven her for decades had been shaken by the brief but profound glimpse into Potter's mind. "The Dark Lord will still win," she said, but her voice lacked its usual fervor. "Maybe," Harry replied. "But not because of this bond." A crack split the air as Rabastan disapparated, likely heading to report to Voldemort. The remaining Death Eaters, seeing their advantage lost, followed suit. "We need to go," Hermione called, landing her broomstick nearby. "Voldemort will be here any minute." Harry nodded, but kept his eyes on Bellatrix. "This isn't over," he told her. "But next time we meet, it'll be on equal terms." Bellatrix's lips curled in a shadow of her usual sneer. "Run while you can, Potter. When my lord arrives, he'll punish you for failing," Harry finished for her. "I can feel your fear of that through our bond. You know I'm right." For the briefest moment, doubt flickered across Bellatrix's face. Then her expression hardened again, the familiar mask of fanaticism sliding back into place. "Go," she said suddenly. "Before I change my mind." Harry hesitated, surprised. "Why, the bond won't let me kill you now," she said, her voice laced with frustration. "I can feel it. But that won't stop my lord from doing it. So go, while you still can." Understanding dawned on Harry. The bond was protecting both of them, in its way. Neither could directly harm the other without harming themselves. With a final, searching look at the witch who was now inextricably connected to him, Harry mounted his broomstick. Ron and Hermione were already airborne, waiting for him. "This isn't over, Bellatrix," he called down to her. "Not by a long shot." Her answering laugh followed him skyward, but through their bond, he felt something beyond her bravado, a dawning realization that everything had changed, for both of them. As they flew away from Crumb's Hill, leaving Bellatrix standing alone in the ancient stone circle, Harry knew with bone-deep certainty that their paths would cross again soon. The bond would ensure it. And when that moment came, the fate of the wizarding world might well hang in the balance. The golden light of sunset filtered through the trees as Harry, Ron, and Hermione made camp miles away from Edinburgh. Their narrow escape from Crumbshill had left them all shaken, but none more so than Harry, who couldn't shake the memory of those moments when his mind had fully merged with Bellatrix's. "You're quiet," Hermione observed as they sat around the small blue fire she'd conjured. "Are you thinking about what happened back there?" Harry nodded, absently rubbing the silver mark on his palm. "I saw her memories. Not just recent ones, but her whole life. It was..." He struggled to find the right word. "Disorienting. Like suddenly having two childhoods, two sets of experiences." "That doesn't sound healthy, mate," Ron said with concern. "Is it still happening?" "No, it was just in that moment when our marks touched. Now it's back to the way it was before. I can sense her emotions, catch glimpses of her thoughts, but it's more distant." Harry frowned. "The thing is, I think the experience affected her even more than it did me. She wasn't prepared for it." "How so?" Hermione asked. Harry considered how to explain what he'd felt from Bellatrix in those final moments at the stone circle. "It's like, her entire identity is built around her devotion to Voldemort. But seeing my memories, experiencing what I've experienced, it created doubt. Not enough to turn her against him, but enough to shake her. Could we use that?" Ron wondered. "If this bond gives you influence over her, maybe you could push that doubt, make her question Voldemort more." "It's not that simple," Harry shook his head. "The influence goes both ways. For every bit I affect her, she affects me. And she's had decades more experience with dark magic and manipulation." "What about the ritual she was trying to perform?" Hermione asked. "The dominance assertion. If we understood it better, maybe we could protect against future attempts." "She'll try again," Harry confirmed. "I can feel her determination." Voldemort won't accept failure, he'll push her to find another way to turn the bond into a weapon. Hermione rummaged in her beaded bag, pulling out a thick, leather-bound book. I've been reading about magical contracts. The unbreakable marriage bond is mentioned here, though the information is limited since they've been illegal for centuries. She flipped through the pages. According to this, the bond was originally created for political alliances between powerful magical families. It literally merges the magical signatures of the bonded pair. What does that mean exactly? Ron asked. It means, Hermione continued, that over time, Harry and Bellatrix will develop the ability to draw on each other's magical strengths. Spells one performs well, the other will find easier. Magical abilities might transfer. Harry felt a chill at her words. Are you saying I could end up with Bellatrix's skill for dark magic? Or that she could gain my, Patronus ability? Potentially, yes. Hermione looked troubled. The book describes it as a gradual harmonization of magical signatures. Eventually, your magic might become nearly indistinguishable from hers, and vice versa. That's horrifying, Ron said bluntly. There must be a way to prevent it, Harry insisted. Some counter-ritual or spell. Hermione shook her head. The only methods mentioned for breaking the bond are the death of one party, and even then, the survivor often loses a significant portion of their magical ability, or a mutual dissolution, which requires both parties to willingly renounce the bond. Harry laughed humorlessly. So either I die, Bellatrix dies, or somehow I convince Voldemort's most devoted follower to willingly break a magical connection that her master wants to use against me. Brilliant. There is one other aspect of these bonds that might be useful, Hermione added, her finger tracing a passage in the book. The compulsion effect. Bonded pairs find themselves physically drawn together over time. The longer they stay apart, the stronger the compulsion becomes. So eventually I'll feel compelled to seek out Bellatrix? Harry asked, alarmed. And she'll feel compelled to seek you out, Hermione pointed out. Which might create conflict between her devotion to Voldemort and the bond's magic. Or it might just make it easier for her to lead me into a trap, Harry countered. As they discussed the implications, Harry felt a sudden surge of emotion through the bond. Bellatrix was experiencing intense pain. Voldemort's punishment for her failure, he realized with a strange mix of satisfaction and discomfort. He's torturing her, he said aloud. Voldemort. I can feel it. Ron and Hermione exchanged concerned glances. Can you block it out? Hermione asked gently. Harry closed his eyes, trying to separate himself from Bellatrix's suffering. Not entirely. It's like background noise. But. He hesitated, not wanting to admit the troubling truth. But what? Ron prompted. Part of me doesn't want to block it out, Harry confessed. Part of me thinks she deserves it, after everything she's done. After Sirius. He opened his eyes, ashamed. What does that say about me? It says you're human, Harry, Hermione said firmly. After what she's done, it's natural to want her to face consequences. But taking satisfaction in torture? Harry shook his head. That's not who I want to be. That's more like her. The implications hung heavily in the air between them. Was this the bond's influence already, or simply Harry's own darker impulses brought to the surface by circumstance? We should focus on what we can control, Hermione said after a moment. The cup. We still need to destroy it. Harry nodded, grateful for the change of subject. We were talking about basilisk venom. Going to the Chamber of Secrets. If we're going back to Hogwarts anyway, Ron reasoned, we might as well look for the next Horcrux while we're there. Hermione's right, it makes sense that you know who would hide one at the school. It's risky, Harry said. But you're right. We need to make progress on the Horcruxes. He glanced down at his palm, where the silver mark seemed to pulse with its own subtle light. This bond complicates things, but it doesn't change our mission. As they finalized their plans to infiltrate Hogwarts, Harry felt Bellatrix's pain begin to subside. Through their connection, he sensed her crawling back into Voldemort's good graces, her apologies and renewed vows of loyalty. But beneath her exterior devotion, the seed of doubt remained, tiny but undeniable. For the first time, Harry wondered if the bond might offer more than just complications and danger. Perhaps, in some way he couldn't yet foresee, it might provide an unexpected advantage in the coming battle. One thing was certain, his fate and Bellatrix's were now intertwined in ways neither had chosen but both would have to navigate. And when they next met face to face, the encounter would be shaped by the unwanted understanding they'd gained of each other at Crumbs Hill. An understanding that might yet change the course of the war. Chapter 2, Minds Entwined. The Forbidden Forest loomed dark and foreboding as Harry, Ron, and Hermione crept along its edge. Hogwarts Castle rose before them, its familiar spires and towers silhouetted against the night sky, but the warm glow of welcome that had always emanated from the school was gone, replaced by an oppressive darkness that seemed to seep from the very stones. "It doesn't even look like Hogwarts anymore," Ron whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Harry nodded silently. Under Snape's control, with Death Eaters as teachers, the school had transformed from sanctuary to prison. Through his connection to Bellatrix, he'd gleaned fragments of what life was now like for the students, the Carrows using the Cruciatus Curse as punishment, children forced to practice dark arts on one another, resistance met with brutal retaliation. Aberforth said Neville would meet us at the passage entrance, Hermione reminded them, scanning the grounds warily. "We need to stay hidden until then." They had apparat to Hogsmeade earlier that evening, narrowly escaping a caterwauling charm and Death Eaters by taking refuge in the Hog's Head. Aberforth Dumbledore, grudgingly helpful, had arranged for Neville to guide them through a secret passage into the school. As they waited in the shadows, Harry felt a now familiar tug in his mind. Bellatrix was awake, her thoughts churning with agitation. Since the failed ritual at Crumbs Hill 3 days ago, their connection had evolved in unexpected ways. He could now sense her location with unsettling precision, Malfoy Manor, pacing the length of her chamber, and sometimes caught complete thoughts rather than just emotional impressions. "She knows we're near Hogwarts," Harry murmured. "Can she tell exactly where?" Hermione asked, alarmed. Harry shook his head. "Not precisely. She knows I'm in Scotland, close to the school, but not our exact location." He frowned, concentrating on the foreign presence in his mind. "She's conflicted. Voldemort's ordered her to stay at Malfoy Manor, but the bond is pulling her toward me." "The compulsion effect Hermione mentioned?" Ron asked. "I think so. It's getting stronger." Harry absently rubbed the silver mark on his palm, which had begun to itch the moment they'd arrived in Hogsmeade. "I can feel it too, a kind of restlessness, like I'm walking in the wrong direction even when I know I'm not." Hermione bit her lip. "How long do you think before it becomes too strong to resist?" "I don't know. Days, maybe. It doesn't feel irresistible yet, just uncomfortable." Harry tried to project confidence he didn't entirely feel. The truth was, the bond's effects were accelerating faster than any of them had anticipated. A soft rustle from the edge of the forest interrupted their conversation. Harry raised his wand, but lowered it immediately when a familiar round face emerged from the darkness. Neville. Their friend looked nothing like the boy they'd left behind. His face was bruised and cut, one eye swollen nearly shut, but he grinned at them with fierce determination. "You made it." Neville clasped each of their hands in turn. "I was starting to worry. Come on, the passage is this way." As they followed him toward a concealed entrance at the base of a gnarled oak tree, Harry noticed Neville's limp and the careful way he held himself, suggesting injuries beyond the visible ones. "The Carrows?" he asked quietly. Neville's expression hardened. "Got on their bad side. Again. Worth it, though. Some of the first years were going to be their practice subjects for the Cruciatus Curse." Harry felt a swell of pride and sorrow for his friend. "Dumbledore's army is still active, then?" "More than ever. We've turned the room of requirement into a headquarters, some of us are living there full-time now. The Carrows can't get in. Neville tapped his wand against the tree in a complex pattern, and a section of bark slid away, revealing a narrow tunnel. This way. Mind your heads. They crawled through the passage in silence, emerging eventually into a warmly lit room hung with hammocks and colorful banners. A cheer went up as they entered. Dozens of students, many bearing signs of punishment similar to Neville's, rushed forward to greet them. It's really you. We knew you'd come back. Have you really been breaking into Gringotts? The questions came from all sides as the members of Dumbledore's army surrounded them. Harry recognized familiar faces, Ginny, Luna, Seamus, Lavender, all showing signs of the regime they'd been living under, but all with the same determined light in their eyes. Give them space. Neville called, and the crowd reluctantly backed up. Ginny pushed forward, her red hair braided back from a face that had grown leaner, harder since Harry had last seen her. For a moment, all his complicated feelings for her rushed back, then subsided as the bond with Bellatrix sent an unexpected jolt of something like possessiveness through him. You look terrible, Ginny said with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. You don't, Harry replied honestly. An awkward silence fell between them. So much had changed since Bill and Fleur's wedding, not least the silver mark on Harry's palm, which he found himself self-consciously hiding in his pocket. We need your help, Hermione broke the tension, addressing the room at large. We're looking for something hidden somewhere in the castle. It might be small, something related to Ravenclaw. Luna stepped forward, her dreamy expression unchanged despite a cut along her cheekbone. There's Rowena Ravenclaw's lost diadem. That's been missing for centuries, though. Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione. A diadem, a kind of crown, would fit the pattern of Voldemort selecting significant artifacts for his Horcruxes. Has anyone seen anything like that? Maybe in a portrait or statue, he asked. As the conversation continued, with various students suggesting possibilities, Harry felt the bond with Bellatrix pull stronger. She'd sensed his excitement, his feeling of being on the right track. And she was responding, no longer just pacing her room, but arguing with someone. Rodolphus, he thought, catching fragments of their exchange. I must go, her voice echoed in his mind. The bond calls. The Dark Lord commanded you to stay, Rodolphus replied. The Dark Lord does not understand the magic at work. Harry forced himself back to the present moment, where Neville was organizing search parties. We'll split up, Neville was saying. Luna, take a group to check the Ravenclaw common room. Ginny, you and Seamus check the 7th floor corridors. We'll meet back here in 30 minutes. There's something else we need, Harry said as the groups prepared to leave. We need to get into the Chamber of Secrets. Shocked murmurs ran through the room. The chamber's reputation had only grown more sinister in the years since it had been opened. Why? Ginny asked sharply, the memory of her own experience with the chamber clearly still painful. Basilisk venom, Hermione explained. We need it to destroy certain dark artifacts. Understanding dawned on Neville's face. This is about defeating you-know-who, isn't it? These things you're searching for. Harry nodded. The less you know about the specifics, the safer you are. But yes, finding these objects and destroying them is the key to ending Voldemort. The name sent a ripple of fear through the room, but it was quickly replaced by determined nods. Then we'll help however we can, Neville said firmly. But none of us are Parselmouths, Harry. How do we get into the chamber? I can get us in, Ron said unexpectedly. When everyone turned to stare at him, he shrugged. I heard Harry say it enough times when he opened that locket. I think I can mimic it. We should go now, while the others search for the diadem, Hermione suggested. The entrance is in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, and that's closest to the Ravenclaw tower anyway. As they made final arrangements, Harry found himself drawn aside by Neville. There's something else you should know, Neville said in a low voice. Snape's been acting strange the past few days. More patrols, more security measures. It's like he's expecting something to happen. Bellatrix, Harry realized aloud. She must have told Voldemort about the bond drawing us together. They know I might come to Hogwarts. Neville's brow furrowed. What bond? Bellatrix Lestrange. Harry hesitated, then decided Neville deserved the truth. Quickly, he explained about the accidental activation of the marriage contract in the Lestrange vault and the connection it had created. Neville's face drained of color. You're bonded to Bellatrix Lestrange? The woman who tortured my parents into insanity? Not by choice, Harry said quietly. Believe me, Neville, I'd break it if I could. But for now, we're trying to use it to our advantage. I can sense things through her, Voldemort's plans, Death Eater movements. Neville took a step back, his expression a complex mixture of horror and determination. Does she get the same from you? Our plans? Our location? To some extent, Harry admitted. But I'm learning to control what gets through. And right now, she's still at Malfoy Manor. But she won't stay there, will she? Neville's voice had gone hard. This bond will bring her here, to Hogwarts. To you. Eventually, yes. The pull is getting stronger. Harry met Neville's eyes. When she comes, and she will come, I'll face her. For your parents, for Sirius, for everyone she's hurt. For a long moment, Neville said nothing. Then, with visible effort, he nodded. Just. Be careful, Harry. Bellatrix Lestrange isn't just evil. She's insane in a way that makes her more dangerous, not less. I know. Harry thought of the glimpses he'd had of Bellatrix's fractured mind, the way Azkaban had twisted her already dark proclivities into something barely recognizable as human. That's why we need to move quickly. Find the diadem, get the basilisk venom, and be ready when she arrives. They rejoined the others as the search parties departed, leaving Harry, Ron, and Hermione to make their way to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom on the second floor. Under Neville's guidance, they navigated the changed Hogwarts, avoiding Carrow patrols, slipping through secret passages, and finally reaching the familiar bathroom where the entrance to the chamber lay hidden. I've always hated this bathroom, Ron muttered as they entered the dank space. Moaning Myrtle was nowhere to be seen, but her perpetual flooding had left the floor slick and the air heavy with moisture. Harry approached the sink with the tiny snake scratched on its copper tap. Ready? Ron cleared his throat nervously. I think so. It's sort of a hissing sound, right? Like this. He made several attempts at Parseltongue, each sounding more like a man choking on a fishbone than a snake language. Maybe try to really visualize a snake, Hermione suggested. Think about how Harry sounded when he opened the locket. Ron closed his eyes, concentrating, then let out a series of hisses that, to Harry's surprise, did sound remarkably like Parseltongue. The sink began to move, sinking out of sight to reveal the large pipe that led down to the chamber. Brilliant. Harry clapped Ron on the shoulder. Ron looked both pleased and disturbed. Let's never mention that I can do that, all right. They lit their wands and descended into the darkness, sliding down the slimy pipe until they landed in the familiar tunnel strewn with small animal bones. The memories of Harry's last visit, Ginny lying cold and still, Tom Riddle emerging from the diary, the basilisk's massive form, came rushing back. This way, he said, leading them toward the chamber proper. As they walked, Harry felt a sharp spike of awareness through the bond. Bellatrix had done something, made some decision that caused a surge of anticipation. He stopped abruptly, focusing on the connection. She had left Malfoy Manor. Against Voldemort's orders, driven by the bond's insistent pull, Bellatrix was now traveling toward Hogwarts. Harry. Hermione touched his arm. What is it? She's coming, he said grimly. Bellatrix has left Malfoy Manor. I think she's heading here. How fast can she get to Hogwarts? Ron asked. Hours, not days, Harry said. She can't apparate directly into the school grounds, but she can get close. We need to hurry. They quickened their pace, soon reaching the ornate door carved with serpents that led to the chamber itself. Another series of hissed syllables from Ron, and the snakes parted as the door swung open. The Chamber of Secrets looked much as Harry remembered it, a long, dimly lit hall with towering stone pillars entwined with carved serpents. At the far end, the giant statue of Salazar Slytherin loomed, its mouth now closed, no longer housing the basilisk that had once slithered from its depths. But it was to the center of the chamber that Harry's attention was drawn. There, lying in a massive coil, was what remained of the basilisk. 5 years had reduced much of it to bone and desiccated scales, but its enormous fangs, still gleaming with venom that never dried or faded, remained intact. Merlin's beard, Ron breathed, taking in the sheer size of the skeleton. Hermione approached cautiously, her wand extended before her. The venom should still be potent. Basilisk venom is nearly eternal, that's what makes it one of the few substances that can destroy a Horcrux. We should take several fangs, Harry suggested. We still have the cup to destroy, and there may be other Horcruxes we haven't found yet. As Ron and Hermione carefully extracted fangs from the massive skull, Harry felt the bond with Bellatrix pulse again, stronger than before. She was moving faster than he'd anticipated, her determination to reach him overriding all else. She's coming by broom, he realized aloud. Flying directly to Hogsmeade. Can she tell exactly where you are? Hermione asked, slipping several fangs into her beaded bag. Harry concentrated on the connection. Not precisely. She knows I'm at Hogwarts, but not that I'm in the chamber. A new sensation filtered through, satisfaction, triumph. She's told others. Death Eaters are mobilizing. We need to warn the others, Ron said immediately. If Death Eaters are coming to Hogwarts, we finish what we started first, Harry interrupted, taking Hufflepuff's cup from his moleskin pouch. We destroy this Horcrux now, then warn everyone. He placed the cup on the stone floor of the chamber. Its golden surface gleamed in the dim light, the badger emblem seeming to move slightly, as if alive. Who wants to do it? He asked, holding out one of the basilisk fangs. Ron stepped forward, his face set. I'll do it. You got the locket, Hermione deserves a turn with this one. Harry handed him the fang. Be careful. It'll fight back, try to get in your head. Ron nodded, remembering all too well how the locket had affected him. He knelt before the cup, raising the fang high. Just do it quickly, Hermione advised, standing ready with her wand. Ron brought the fang down with all his strength, piercing the cup's golden surface. A scream echoed through the chamber, not from the cup, but from Harry. He dropped to his knees, clutching his marked palm as pain radiated up his arm. Through the bond, he felt Bellatrix experience the same agony, a burning that transcended physical distance. Harry. Hermione was at his side immediately. I'm all right, he gasped, though he was anything but. It's the bond, Bellatrix felt that too. The cup was emitting a high, keening wail as black smoke poured from the puncture. A spectral figure began to form in the smoke, Voldemort's face, contorted with rage, but it collapsed in on itself as the Horcrux died. Silence fell in the chamber, broken only by Harry's ragged breathing as the pain in his hand subsided. That's not good, Ron said, stating the obvious. If she can feel it when we destroy a Horcrux, she'll know what we're doing, Hermione finished. She'll tell Voldemort. Harry struggled to his feet, still shaking. She already suspected after seeing my memories at Crumb's Hill. Now she knows for certain. He focused on the bond, trying to gauge Bellatrix's reaction. She's furious, but also, confused. The pain disrupted her flight, she's had to land somewhere. That buys us a little time, Ron said. But not much. Harry nodded. We need to find the diadem before she reaches Hogwarts. And we need to prepare the students for a possible attack. They left the chamber, Ron once again demonstrating his newfound Parseltongue ability to reseal the entrance. As they hurried back toward the room of requirement, Harry felt Bellatrix regaining her composure, her determination to reach him returning with even greater intensity. But there was something else coming through the bond now, a question forming in her mind, directed at him with surprising clarity. "What are you doing to the Dark Lord's treasures, Potter?" Harry didn't respond directly, but he didn't block the impression of his own determination from flowing back to her. Let her feel his resolve. Let her know that nothing, not pain, not their bond, not her imminent arrival, would stop him from destroying every last piece of Voldemort's soul. Bellatrix knelt in the dirt of a Scottish hillside, her breathing ragged as the pain in her palm finally subsided. Her broom lay discarded beside her, dropped when the sudden agony had made flight impossible. "Potter," she snarled, examining the silver dagger mark that now glowed with an inner light. "What have you done?" The connection between them had surged with blinding intensity moments ago, transmitting not just pain but a strange, hollow sensation, as if something fundamental had been destroyed. She'd felt it once before, when the cup was taken from her vault, but not with this clarity, this intimacy. Now she understood what Potter was doing, destroying pieces of the Dark Lord's soul. Horcruxes, the word she'd gleaned from Potter's mind at Crumb's Hill. Objects of immense power that anchored her master to life. The realization should have filled her with rage, with desperation to reach Potter and stop him at any cost. And part of her did feel those things, the devoted servant, the faithful lieutenant who would die for her lord. But another part, a part awakened by the bond and growing stronger each day, felt something else. A question, insidious and unwelcome: why did the Dark Lord never tell her what the cup truly was? He had entrusted it to her, his most loyal follower. Had ordered her to place it in her vault, to protect it at all costs. But he had never explained its true significance, never honored her with the knowledge of what she was really guarding. "No," Bellatrix muttered, shaking her head violently to dislodge the treacherous thought. "My lord's reasons are his own. It is not my place to question." She retrieved her broom and remounted, kicking off into the night sky with renewed purpose. Hogsmeade lay ahead, and beyond it, Hogwarts Castle where Potter waited. Where the bond pulled her with increasing urgency. As she flew, Bellatrix attempted to organize her fractured thoughts. The bond had changed something fundamental within her mind. Before, her devotion to the Dark Lord had been absolute, unquestioning. Her time in Azkaban had stripped away everything else, leaving only that pure, burning loyalty. But now, with Potter's consciousness brushing against her own, other memories were surfacing, memories of who she had been before Azkaban, before the Dark Lord's fall. A young woman with ambition beyond being a pure-blood wife. A sister who had once protected rather than threatened her siblings. A witch who had chosen the Dark Lord's service not just out of ideological alignment, but out of desire for power in a world that offered women like her few paths to it. "Stop it," she hissed to herself, pushing away the unwanted recollections. "Focus." She reached for the bond, deliberately now, trying to sense Potter's location more precisely. He was moving within the castle, that much she could tell. And he was searching for something. Another object like the cup. Bellatrix smiled grimly. The Dark Lord had dispatched the Carrows and Snape to capture Potter if he appeared at Hogwarts, but they didn't have what she had, this direct line into Potter's mind. She would find him first, and when she did. What? The thought pulled her up short. What would she do when she found Potter? The bond prevented direct harm, she had felt that limitation at Crumb's Hill. She couldn't kill him, couldn't even torture him without experiencing the effects herself. But she could capture him. Bring him to the Dark Lord, who faced no such restrictions. The thought brought less satisfaction than it should have. Why are you hunting these objects, Potter? She projected along the bond, curious despite herself. What do you hope to achieve? The response wasn't in words, but in a flood of emotion and intent, determination, resolve, and a deep, burning certainty that destroying these objects was the path to destroying Voldemort himself. Bellatrix nearly fell from her broom again as the force of Potter's conviction washed over her. It wasn't just determination she felt from him, but something purer, more potent, hope. Hope that had sustained him through loss after loss. Hope that kept him fighting when logic said to flee. Hope so powerful it had infected his friends, the Order, and now threatened to infect her. Enough, she shouted into the wind, severing the deliberate connection. The background awareness of him remained, it always would, she suspected, but the direct exchange ceased. Lights appeared ahead, Hogsmeade Village. Bellatrix descended, landing in the shadows behind the Hog's Head Inn. The streets were deserted, the residents had learned to stay inside after dark in these dangerous times. As she shrunk her broom and pocketed it, Bellatrix felt a familiar burning in her left forearm. The dark mark, calling her to the Dark Lord's side. She closed her eyes, conflicted. Her master commanded her presence, yet the bond pulled her toward Hogwarts with equal insistence. For the first time in her life, Bellatrix Lestrange hesitated to answer Voldemort's summons. The hesitation lasted only moments, but its very existence shook her. With a strangled sound somewhere between a sob and a snarl, she pressed her hand to the dark mark, allowing herself to be pulled into the crushing darkness of apparition. She materialized on a hilltop overlooking Hogwarts, where Voldemort stood surrounded by his inner circle of Death Eaters. His serpentine features registered no surprise at her appearance, only cold calculation. "My lord," Bellatrix prostrated herself at his feet. "Forgive my delay." "Rise, Bella." Voldemort's high, cold voice betrayed nothing of his thoughts. "You felt it, did you not? The destruction of another Horcrux." "Yes, my lord." There was no point denying it, he would see the truth in her mind regardless. "Potter has destroyed the cup. I felt it through our bond." Murmurs ran through the assembled Death Eaters. Most had not been privy to the knowledge of Horcruxes, and fewer still understood the nature of the bond that now connected Bellatrix to Potter. "And now he seeks another," Voldemort stated. "At Hogwarts, where I concealed the diadem of Ravenclaw." "He doesn't know what it is yet," Bellatrix offered. "But yes, he searches." Voldemort turned his gaze to the castle below, his red eyes narrowing. "Then the time for waiting is over. Tonight, we take Hogwarts. Tonight, we end Harry Potter." He looked back at Bellatrix. "And you, my Bella, will lead us to him through this bond." "Yes, my lord." Bellatrix fought to keep her expression appropriately reverent, even as something inside her recoiled at the command. "The bond draws me to him already. I can find him within the castle." "Good. Very good." Voldemort smiled thinly. "Yaxley, alert our forces within the Ministry. Rowell, gather the giants. Greyback, position your werewolves at the forest edge." He continued issuing commands, organizing the assault that would begin within hours. As the others dispersed to fulfill their roles, Voldemort beckoned Bellatrix closer. "Walk with me, Bella." They moved away from the others, toward the edge of the hilltop that provided the clearest view of the castle. "You are troubled," Voldemort observed, his voice softer but no less dangerous. Bellatrix started to deny it, then stopped. He would know. "The bond, my lord. It affects me in ways I did not anticipate." "His thoughts bleed into yours," Voldemort nodded. "His emotions influence your own." "Yes." Bellatrix stared fixedly at the distant castle. "I feel his determination, his hope." The word came out twisted, as if it burned her tongue. "And does this hope infect you, Bella?" Voldemort asked silkily. "Does it make you doubt?" "Never, my lord." The denial was instant, fervent. Voldemort studied her, his red eyes seeming to penetrate her very soul. "I think it does. I think this bond has created a weakness in you, my most faithful servant." Bellatrix fell to her knees. "Please, my lord. I fight it every moment. My devotion to you remains absolute." "Does it?" Voldemort circled her slowly. You disobeyed my direct command to remain at Malfoy Manor. The bond called, and you answered, not me. Tears welled in Bellatrix's eyes, because the accusation was true. For the first time since taking his mark, she had prioritized another call above his. The bond is powerful, ancient magic, she whispered. It pulls me physically toward Potter. But my heart, my soul, remains yours alone. We shall see. Voldemort extended one long-fingered hand, touching her forehead. Tonight, you will prove your loyalty. You will lead me to Potter, and you will stand aside as I kill him, even knowing it may damage your own magic through this bond. Bellatrix nodded, not trusting herself to speak. The thought of Potter's death sent a complicated ripple of emotions through her, satisfaction at her lord's victory warring with instinctive resistance from the bond. And now, Voldemort said, his voice regaining its commanding tone, return to Hogsmeade. Enter the castle through the passage in the Hog's Head, yes, we know of it. Find Potter before he finds the diadem. Delay him until I arrive with the full force of our army. Yes, my lord. Bellatrix rose, keeping her eyes lowered respectfully. One more thing, Bella. Voldemort's voice stopped her as she turned to leave. If the bond's compulsion becomes too great, if you find yourself unable to allow me to kill Potter. He let the sentence hang unfinished, but his meaning was clear. It won't come to that, my lord, Bellatrix assured him, though uncertainty gnawed at her for the first time in decades. As she apparat back to Hogsmeade, Bellatrix felt the bond thrum with renewed intensity. Potter had found something, not the diadem yet, but a lead, a direction. His excitement buzzed in the back of her mind like agitated bees. With a grim determination that matched his, Bellatrix set off toward the Hog's Head, prepared to enter Hogwarts and face whatever awaited her there, Potter, the bond's culmination, and perhaps her greatest test of loyalty yet. Ravenclaw's diadem hasn't been seen by living eyes for centuries, Luna explained as she led Harry through corridors increasingly crowded with students. Word had spread that Harry Potter had returned, and despite the danger, many had emerged from dormitories and hiding places to see for themselves. The Grey Lady might know more, she's Ravenclaw's daughter, after all. Harry nodded, only half listening. Through the bond, he'd felt Bellatrix's presence draw nearer, then abruptly vanish. She'd been summoned elsewhere, to Voldemort, he suspected. The reprieve wouldn't last long. Harry. Ginny pushed through the crowd, her face taut with urgency. Neville's called everyone to the room of requirement. The Carrows know something's happening, they're searching the castle. They changed direction, hurrying toward the 7th floor. As they ran, Harry felt the familiar pressure behind his eyes that signaled a vision from Voldemort, not through the bond with Bellatrix, but through his original connection to the Dark Lord. Harry. Luna's dreamy voice seemed to come from far away. You've gone quite pale. He leaned against the wall, letting the vision take him. A hilltop. Death Eaters gathering. Voldemort's high, cold voice, tonight, we take Hogwarts. Tonight, we end Harry Potter. And Bellatrix kneeling before him, torn between two loyalties. They're coming, Harry gasped as the vision released him. Voldemort and his army. They're coming to Hogwarts tonight. Ginny's face hardened. Then we fight. We need to evacuate the younger students first, Luna said with unexpected practicality. The passage to the Hog's Head can't handle everyone at once. Harry nodded. Get word to the professors. Anyone who wants to stay and fight can, but everyone else needs to leave now. As Ginny and Luna raced off to spread the warning, Harry continued alone toward the room of requirement, his mind racing. He needed to find the diadem before the battle began in earnest. Before Bellatrix reached the castle. The corridor outside the room was packed with students when Harry arrived. Neville stood at the center, organizing evacuation groups and defense teams with a leadership that would have been unthinkable from the timid boy Harry had first met. Harry. Neville spotted him and pushed through the crowd. Ron and Hermione told us what's happening. Death Eaters are coming. Voldemort himself is coming, Harry confirmed. We need to prepare, but first I need to find Ravenclaw's diadem. The Grey Lady, Neville nodded. Luna went to find her for you, but she's not back yet. I'll look for her, Harry decided. In the meantime, get everyone organized. Use the DA coins to alert anyone who's not here yet. As Harry turned to leave, Neville caught his arm. What about Lestrange? Is she coming too? Harry felt the bond pulse at the mention of her name. Yes. She's with Voldemort now, but she'll be the first one he sends into the castle. The bond will draw her straight to me. Neville's face darkened. I should be there when you face her. No, Harry said firmly. This is between her and me now. I need you to lead the defense, Neville. The students trust you. Pride and determination warred with personal vengeance in Neville's expression. Finally, he nodded. Be careful, Harry. She's not sane, remember. I know. Harry glanced down at his marked palm. But neither is this bond, and it's the only advantage we have right now. He left Neville organizing the evacuation and headed toward Ravenclaw Tower, hoping to intercept Luna and the Grey Lady. As he navigated the increasingly chaotic corridors, Harry felt Bellatrix return to Hogsmeade. She was close now, very close. Closing his eyes briefly, Harry focused on the bond, deliberately projecting a thought toward her: the castle is being evacuated. Students are leaving. This is between us, Bellatrix. Her response came immediately, surprisingly clear: nothing is just between us, Potter. My lord comes for you tonight. Then he'll die tonight, Harry responded with a conviction that startled even himself. Like the cup died. Like the locket died. He felt her mental recoil at his words, followed by a surge of fury. But beneath it lay something else, something she was trying desperately to hide from him: doubt. Doubt that had taken root at Crumb's Hill and grown with each Horcrux destroyed. Harry pressed his advantage. He never told you what they were, did he? The things he asked you to guard, to die for. He never trusted you with the truth. Silence. Her response lashed through their connection like a whip. You know nothing of my lord's trust in me. I know he's using you, Harry persisted. Just like he's using the bond between us. You're a tool to him, Bellatrix. Nothing more. Her rage surged through their connection with such force that Harry staggered, catching himself against the wall. But he'd struck a nerve. The doubt was growing, feeding on insecurities she'd buried beneath layers of fanaticism. A soft voice interrupted his concentration. Harry Potter. He turned to find the Grey Lady hovering nearby, her translucent form shimmering in the torchlight. Luna stood beside her, looking pleased. I found her for you, Luna said. She's agreed to talk about the diadem. The ghost regarded Harry with ancient, sorrowful eyes. You seek my mother's diadem. Why? I need to find it, Harry said simply. To stop Voldemort. The damaged boy, the Grey Lady murmured. He sought it too, decades ago. He found it where I had hidden it. Where? Harry asked urgently. The room where everything is hidden, she replied. Where generations of Hogwarts students have concealed their secrets. He defiled it with dark magic, as he promised he would. The room of requirement, Harry realized. It becomes the room of hidden things when you need it to. He turned to Luna. I need to get back there immediately. As they hurried back toward the 7th floor, Harry felt Bellatrix enter the castle through the Hog's Head passage. The bond between them thrummed with anticipation. The compulsion that had been drawing them together for days was about to be satisfied. Luna, Harry said as they ran, I need you to go ahead to the room of requirement. Tell everyone to clear out, we need to access a different version of the room. Luna nodded and sprinted ahead, her pale hair streaming behind her. Alone in the corridor, Harry paused, reaching out through the bond one more time. I'm going to find it, Bellatrix. I'm going to destroy it. And then I'm going to destroy him. Her response was immediate and unexpected. Wait for me, Potter. Not a threat. Not a command. Almost, a plea. Harry felt her moving through the castle now, following the pull of the bond directly toward him. She was alone, she hadn't brought other Death Eaters with her. Whatever was about to happen between them, she wanted no witnesses. By the time Harry reached the 7th floor, Luna had cleared the corridor. The room of requirement had reverted to its normal appearance, a blank wall where the door would appear when summoned. Harry paced before it, thinking clearly, I need the place where everything is hidden. I need the place where everything is hidden. I need the place where everything is hidden. A door materialized, and Harry pulled it open. Beyond lay a cathedral-like space filled with towering piles of objects, broken furniture, banned books, contraband items, and thousands of other things hidden by generations of Hogwarts inhabitants. He stepped inside, the door closing behind him. Where in this vast space would Voldemort have hidden the diadem? Harry closed his eyes, focusing not on the bond with Bellatrix this time, but on his connection to Voldemort himself. What would Tom Riddle have considered a worthy hiding place? Somewhere significant. Somewhere that represented Hogwarts' secrets and power. Somewhere only he was clever enough to find. Harry's eyes snapped open. The vanishing cabinet, the one Draco had used to let Death Eaters into the school last year. It represented exactly the kind of secret passage, the hidden potential that would appeal to Riddle's sensibilities. Moving with renewed purpose, Harry navigated the towering piles, searching for the cabinet he had seen Malfoy working on. As he drew near its location, he felt a familiar darkness, a whisper of malevolence that he had come to associate with Horcruxes. And then he saw it, perched atop a tarnished bust, a discolored tiara with the Ravenclaw motto etched upon it. The diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw, corrupted into a vessel for Voldemort's soul. Harry reached for it, then hesitated. The locket had nearly strangled Ron. The diary had possessed Ginny. What defenses might this Horcrux have? As if in answer, the door to the room crashed open behind him. Harry spun, wand raised, already knowing who he would see. Bellatrix Lestrange stood in the doorway, her wild black hair framing a face that was paler than Harry remembered. Her heavy-lidded eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made the bond between them surge like a live wire. For a long moment, neither spoke. The physical proximity they'd both been compelled toward had finally been achieved, and the bond hummed with completion, momentarily overwhelming everything else. Potter, Bellatrix finally said, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. Bellatrix. Harry kept his wand steady, though he knew from experience at Crumb's Hill that neither could directly harm the other. She stepped into the room, the door swinging shut behind her. You found it. Her eyes flicked to the diadem. Another piece of my lord's soul. Yes. Harry made no move to take it yet. He never told you about them, did he? How many pieces he'd torn his soul into? Bellatrix's face contorted briefly with something like pain. That was not for me to know. My role was to serve, not to question. And look where that got you, Harry said quietly. Bound to his greatest enemy. About to watch another piece of him die. She moved closer, her movements predatory yet hesitant. I could stop you. The bond prevents direct harm, but I could still take the diadem, keep it from you. You could try. Harry met her gaze steadily. But you won't. You sound very certain, Potter. A hint of her old manic smile flickered across her face. What makes you think I won't protect my lord's treasure? Because you've started to doubt, Harry said simply. I can feel it through the bond. Every Horcrux we destroy, every memory we share, every time he punishes you for what you can't control, the doubt grows. Bellatrix's wand hand trembled. You know nothing of my devotion. I know everything about it, Harry countered. I've seen your memories, Bellatrix. I know why you joined him. I know what Azkaban did to you. I know how it feels when he cruciates you for failing him. Stop it, she hissed. I know you wonder sometimes, in the quietest part of your mind, whether it was worth it. All the pain, all the years lost, all the things you could have been, sacrificed for a master who treats you as disposable. Stop it. Bellatrix's scream echoed through the cavernous room. Her wand slashed the air, sending a nearby pile of objects crashing down, but she made no move to attack Harry directly. In the silence that followed, Harry felt the bond between them pulse with shared emotion, anger, confusion, and beneath it all, a terrible, unwilling understanding. He's using you, Bellatrix, Harry said more gently. He's using both of us. This bond, these Horcruxes, they're just tools to him. Means to an end. And what end do you serve, Potter? Bellatrix demanded, her voice rough with suppressed emotion. Your precious order. Dumbledore's grand plan. No one's, Harry replied honestly. Not anymore. I'm trying to stop a war. To end the killing. That's all. Bellatrix laughed, but it lacked her usual manic edge. Such noble intentions. And yet here we stand, about to plunge the wizarding world into its final battle. It doesn't have to be that way. Harry took a step toward her. You could choose differently. You could help end this. For a brief moment, something flickered in Bellatrix's eyes, not the madness he was accustomed to, but a glimpse of the person she might have been without Voldemort's influence. Without Azkaban's torture. Then her expression hardened again. The Dark Lord comes. Even now, he gathers his forces at the edge of the grounds. Soon, they will breach the castle's defenses. I know. Harry glanced at the diadem. That's why I need to destroy this now. Before he arrives. Bellatrix followed his gaze, her expression unreadable. And if I try to stop you? You won't, Harry said again, with that same quiet certainty. Because deep down, you want to know what happens when all his Horcruxes are gone. When he's mortal again. You're a fool, Potter, she snarled, but made no move toward the diadem. Harry reached into his pocket and withdrew one of the basilisk fangs they'd collected from the chamber. Maybe. But I'm a fool who's about to destroy another piece of Voldemort's soul. He approached the diadem slowly, keeping one eye on Bellatrix. She watched him with an intensity that bordered on hunger, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Last chance, Harry offered. Try to stop me or help me. Choose. Bellatrix's wan hand twitched, but she remained where she stood. Through their bond, Harry felt her internal struggle, devotion warring with doubt, certainty with curiosity. Taking her silence as answer enough, Harry grasped the diadem. Immediately, he felt it pulse with malevolence, as if recognizing the threat he posed. Whispers filled his mind, promises of power, knowledge, immortality. The same temptations Voldemort himself had succumbed to. Harry placed the diadem on the ground and raised the basilisk fang. Wait, Bellatrix said suddenly. Harry paused, looking up at her. Bellatrix approached slowly, her movements cautious, like a predator unsure of its prey. She knelt opposite Harry, the diadem between them. I want to feel it, she said, her voice barely audible. I want to feel him die. Harry understood then. This wasn't about stopping him. It was about witnessing, about confirming what she had begun to suspect through their bond. That the man she had devoted her life to had fragmented himself into something less than human. It will hurt, he warned her. Like the cup, but worse. We're closer now. Bellatrix's laugh was hollow. Pain and I are old friends, Potter. She extended her marked palm across the diadem. Harry hesitated, then placed his own marked palm against hers. The silver dagger symbols aligned, and the bond between them surged with power. With his free hand, Harry brought the basilisk fang down hard on the diadem. The scream that erupted was threefold, the diadem's unearthly wail, Harry's pained gasp, and Bellatrix's hoarse cry. Black smoke poured from the shattered tiara, briefly forming Voldemort's face before dissipating into nothingness. Through their joined hands, the full force of the Horcruxes' death throes passed between Harry and Bellatrix. But instead of pulling away from the pain, they clung to each other, united for the first time in a shared experience neither could fully process alone. As the diadem crumbled to ash between them, Bellatrix's eyes met Harry's. The madness that usually danced there had receded, replaced by a clarity that was almost more frightening. "He never told me," she whispered. "All those years, and he never trusted me with the truth." "He doesn't trust anyone," Harry replied softly. "That's his weakness." Bellatrix withdrew her hand abruptly, rising to her feet. Her expression shifted, the familiar mask of devotion sliding back into place, but Harry had seen beneath it now. Had felt the first true crack in her faith. "The Dark Lord comes," she repeated, but her voice lacked conviction. "And I must decide." "Yes," Harry agreed, standing as well. "You must." A tremendous boom shook the castle, dust sifting down from the ceiling of the Room of Hidden Things. The attack had begun. Bellatrix's eyes darted to the door, then back to Harry. Through their bond, he felt her confusion, her conflicted loyalties. The choice that loomed before her was not simple betrayal, but a fundamental questioning of everything she had built her life upon. "I won't stop you leaving," Harry told her. "But think about what you've felt tonight. What you've learned. And remember that there are choices beyond the ones he's allowed you to see." Another blast rocked the castle. Bellatrix moved toward the door, her steps hesitant. "When we meet again, Potter," she said without turning back, "it will be before my lord. And I will have made my choice." "I know," Harry said quietly. "So will I." The door closed behind her, and Harry was left alone with the ashes of the diadem and the certainty that the final battle had begun. Not just for Hogwarts, but for the soul of Bellatrix Lestrange. And perhaps, in ways he was only beginning to understand, for his own soul as well. Chaos reigned in the corridors of Hogwarts. Students fled toward evacuation points, professors established defensive positions, and the first wave of Death Eaters had already breached the outer walls. Bellatrix moved through it all like a wraith, untouched by the panic around her, her mind still reeling from what she had witnessed in the Room of Requirement. Another piece of the Dark Lord's soul, destroyed before her eyes. And with it, another piece of her unquestioning faith. The bond with Potter throbbed in time with her heartbeat. He remained in the room, she knew, gathering himself for what was to come. But soon he would emerge, and the battle would find him. Just as Voldemort would find him. Bellatrix paused at a window overlooking the grounds. Below, giants lumbered toward the castle walls. Acromantulas scuttled from the forest. And at their center, gliding forward with inhuman grace, came Lord Voldemort himself. Her master. Her lord. The wizard to whom she had pledged her life, her magic, her very soul. "My lord," she whispered, pressing her unmarked palm to the cool glass. Through the bond, she felt Potter moving again. He had left the room and was heading toward the great hall, where defenders were gathering. His determination washed over her, not the grim resignation she might have expected, but a fierce, almost joyful readiness for the coming fight. Potter believed he could win. More than that, he believed he was right. Bellatrix closed her eyes, searching her own convictions. The Dark Lord had shown her a vision of a world where purebloods ruled, where the natural order was restored. He had promised her power, recognition, a place of honor in the new regime. But he had also lied. Had kept secrets. Had used her devotion while never offering true trust in return. Bellatrix Lestrange. She turned to find Minerva McGonagall behind her, wand aimed steadily at her heart. The Transfiguration professor's face was lined with exhaustion, but her eyes were sharp and unforgiving. "Hiding from the fight, Lestrange?" McGonagall asked coldly. "That's not like you." Bellatrix smiled thinly. "Not hiding, Minerva. Considering." "Considering what?" Which student to torture first? McGonagall's voice dripped with contempt. Considering sides, Bellatrix replied, surprising herself with the honesty. Considering loyalties. McGonagall's expression flickered with confusion. What game are you playing? Bellatrix extended her palm, showing the silver dagger mark. No game. A bond. Between me and Potter. Understanding dawned on McGonagall's face. The rumors are true, then. Some kind of magical contract was activated. An unbreakable marriage bond, Bellatrix confirmed. Most inconvenient for all concerned. Despite the gravity of the situation, McGonagall's lips twitched. I imagine so. A crash from below signaled another breach in the castle's defenses. McGonagall's wand remained steady, but her attention was clearly divided. You should be helping your students, Bellatrix observed. Not wasting time on me. And leave a known murderer free to roam Hogwarts. I think not. McGonagall's voice was steel. You misunderstand me, Bellatrix sighed. I'm not offering to surrender. Merely pointing out that there are more pressing threats at the moment than one conflicted Death Eater. Conflicted? McGonagall raised an eyebrow. That would be a first. Indeed. Bellatrix looked back out the window, where Voldemort's forces drew ever closer to the main doors. These are unprecedented times. Another explosion rocked the castle. McGonagall's wand wavered as she fought to maintain her balance. Go, Bellatrix said softly. Your students need you. And I need to find Potter before my lord does. To protect him or to deliver him? McGonagall demanded. Bellatrix turned her gaze back to the professor, and for once, allowed her true uncertainty to show. I don't know yet. That's what I'm considering. Something in her expression must have convinced McGonagall, because after a long moment, the older witch lowered her wand slightly. If you harm any student in this castle, McGonagall said, her voice deadly quiet, bond or no bond, I will end you. Bellatrix inclined her head in acknowledgement. Fair enough. With a final, searching look, McGonagall turned and hurried away toward the sounds of battle, leaving Bellatrix alone with her thoughts. The choice before her was impossible. Serve her lord, as she had sworn to do, and help him kill the boy to whom she was now bound. Or, what? Betray everything she had believed in for decades? Throw in her lot with Potter and his band of blood traitors and mudbloods? No. There had to be a third path. Bellatrix closed her eyes, focusing on the bond. Potter was in motion, moving toward the heart of the battle. His emotions were a complex swirl, fear not for himself but for his friends, determination to end Voldemort's reign, and something else, something directed specifically at her, expectation. He was waiting to see what she would do. With sudden clarity, Bellatrix understood her course. She would find Potter before the Dark Lord did. She would face him, publicly, where both sides would witness their encounter. And then she would make her choice, in the moment, based not on the past or on fear, but on the truth she found in that confrontation. Decision made, Bellatrix moved with renewed purpose toward the Great Hall. The castle shook around her, portraits fleeing their frames, suits of armor marching to defend the school. The battle for Hogwarts was fully joined now, and somewhere in the chaos, Potter waited for her. Just as he had promised, through their bond, I'll be waiting, Bellatrix. When the moment comes, we'll both choose. The Great Hall had become a field hospital and command center rolled into one. Wounded defenders lay along the walls, tended by Madame Pomfrey and volunteers. In the center, what remained of the Order of the Phoenix gathered around a makeshift map of the castle, charting the Death Eater's advance. Harry pushed through the crowd, Ron and Hermione at his sides. They had reunited in the corridor outside the Room of Requirement, both bearing signs of skirmishes with the invading forces. The diadem? Hermione asked breathlessly. Destroyed, Harry confirmed. That's 4 down, the diary, the ring, the locket, and now the diadem. Plus the cup makes 5, Ron added. Which leaves the snake, Harry nodded. And Voldemort himself. They reached the center of the hall, where Kingsley Shacklebolt was directing the defense. The Auror looked up as they approached, his face grim but determined. Potter. Good timing. The outer defenses are falling faster than anticipated. We've got giants at the north wall, acromantulas coming through the east wing, and Death Eaters everywhere else. Voldemort? Harry asked. Still outside the grounds, but moving closer. Kingsley pointed to the map. We've concentrated our strongest fighters here, at the main entrance, but we're stretched thin. Harry surveyed the chaotic hall. Familiar faces were everywhere, Professor McGonagall charming suits of armor into defenders, the Weasley twins distributing shield hats and other protective inventions, Neville and Luna leading a group of DA members toward the east wing to counter the Acromantula threat. And somewhere in the castle, drawing nearer by the moment, Bellatrix Lestrange approached. Harry could feel her through the bond, moving with purpose in his direction. There's something else you should know, Harry told Kingsley. Bellatrix Lestrange is already inside the castle. Kingsley's expression darkened. How? The Death Eaters are only just breaching the outer walls. She came in through the Hog's Head passage earlier. She's... Harry hesitated, then decided on the simplified version. She's tracking me specifically. Because of this bond we've heard rumors about? Kingsley asked shrewdly. Harry nodded, showing the silver mark on his palm. It's complicated, but yes. She and I are connected by an ancient marriage contract that activated accidentally. Kingsley absorbed this with remarkable composure. And is she coming to kill you or to collect you for her master? Neither. She can't directly harm me because of the bond. And as for her intentions... Harry frowned, focusing on the impression he was getting through their connection. She's conflicted. The bond has affected her more than anyone expected. She's questioning things. Bellatrix Lestrange, questioning her loyalty to Voldemort. Kingsley looked skeptical. That seems unlikely, Potter. I know. But I felt it when we destroyed the diadem. She was there, Kingsley. She watched it happen, felt it through our bond. And it shook her. Harry met the Auror's gaze steadily. I'm not saying she's switched sides. I'm saying she's unstable right now, which makes her even more dangerous than usual. Kingsley nodded grimly. I'll warn the others to be on alert for her. But our priority has to be holding the castle long enough to evacuate the younger students. And finding the snake, Harry added. Nagini is the last Horcrux. We need to destroy it before I can face Voldemort. A tremendous crash from the entrance hall interrupted their conversation. Screams echoed through the corridor, and moments later, students came fleeing into the Great Hall. They're inside, someone shouted. Death Eaters in the entrance hall. Kingsley immediately began organizing a defensive line. Minerva, take your group and secure the left flank. Flitwick, right flank. Arthur, hold the center with me. Harry turned to Ron and Hermione. This is it. We need to find Nagini. She'll be with him, Ron said. You know who won't let her out of his sight now. Then we need to draw him in, Harry decided. Make him come to us. Before they could formulate a plan, a hush fell over the Great Hall. The defenders, poised to rush toward the entrance hall, faltered. A figure stood in the doorway, a woman with wild black hair and heavy-lidded eyes, her wand held loosely at her side. Bellatrix Lestrange had arrived. But she wasn't attacking. She stood perfectly still, her gaze sweeping the hall until it locked with Harry's across the crowded space. Through their bond, Harry felt her turmoil, her indecision, and beneath it all, a desperate need for certainty that had been shaken to its core. Potter, she called, her voice carrying easily in the sudden silence. A word, if you please. Wands throughout the hall tracked her every movement. Neville had gone rigid with fury, his knuckles white around his wand. The Weasleys formed a protective semicircle, ready to attack at the slightest provocation. "It's all right," Harry said loudly, starting forward. "Let me handle this." "Harry, no," Hermione grabbed his arm. "It could be a trap." "It's not," he assured her. "Not this time." Moving slowly, Harry approached Bellatrix. The bond between them hummed with increasing intensity as the distance closed. When they stood just feet apart, the sensation was almost overwhelming, like a circuit completing, magic flowing between them in a continuous loop. "You came," Harry said quietly. "The bond demanded it," Bellatrix replied, but they both knew it wasn't that simple. She had made a choice to seek him out, to face him before the assembled defenders rather than ambush him in a corridor. "Your lord is coming," Harry said. "Yes." Bellatrix's eyes never left his. "He comes for you. For the final confrontation. And where will you stand when he does?" Harry asked the question that hung between them, that had built since their minds first touched at Crumb's Hill. Bellatrix's smile was a shadow of her former manic grin. "That depends, Potter, on what you offer in return." Harry frowned. "I don't understand." "Don't you?" Bellatrix stepped closer, ignoring the warning shouts from the defenders behind Harry. "You ask me to betray my lord. To turn against everything I have believed in for decades. What do you offer in exchange for such a monumental betrayal?" The question caught Harry off guard. He had assumed, naively, he now realized, that the doubt he'd sensed in her would be enough. That she might choose differently based on principle alone. "I offer the truth," he said finally. "About what he is. About what he's done to himself, to his followers, to our world." "Truth?" Bellatrix laughed softly. "Truth is subjective, Potter. My truth has been his cause for most of my life." "Then what do you want?" Harry demanded. "What would be enough to make you turn against him?" Bellatrix's expression shifted, the mask of control slipping to reveal something raw and desperate beneath. "Recognition. Of what I gave up. Of what I sacrificed. Not just from you, but from them." She gestured to the assembled order members. "I want them to know that everything I did because I believed. Because I was loyal. Not because I was merely mad." Harry understood then. Beneath the fanaticism, beneath the cruelty and the madness, Bellatrix Lestrange wanted what everyone wanted, to be seen. To have her choices, however terrible, acknowledged as choices rather than dismissed as insanity. "I can't promise that," Harry said honestly. "You've done too much. Hurt too many people." "Yes," Bellatrix agreed, surprising him. "I have. But I have also loved, Potter. Loved with a devotion that consumed everything else." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And now I find that love was built on lies." The admission hung between them, raw and painful. Through the bond, Harry felt the true extent of her devastation, not just anger at being deceived, but the existential terror of having built her entire identity around a false premise. "He used you," Harry said gently. "Just as he's used everyone who ever followed him. But that doesn't mean your capacity for devotion wasn't real. It was just misplaced." Something shifted in Bellatrix's expression, a softening, a moment of genuine vulnerability. Wisely spoken for one so young. Another crash echoed from deeper in the castle, breaking the strange intimacy of the moment. Reality reasserted itself. They were in the middle of a battle, surrounded by people who had every reason to hate and fear Bellatrix Lestrange. "He comes closer," Bellatrix said, her expression hardening again. "Soon, he will enter the castle. And when he does, Nagini will be with him." Harry's attention sharpened. "You know about Nagini? About what she is?" "I suspected, after what I felt when the diadem was destroyed. The cup, the diadem, pieces of his soul. It makes a certain sense that he would use his most constant companion as another vessel." Bellatrix's eyes flicked to Harry's scar. Just as he inadvertently used you. The observation sent a chill down Harry's spine. How much had she gleaned from their connected minds? If you truly wish to end him, Bellatrix continued, you will need to destroy the snake before facing him. I know, Harry said. But she never leaves his side. A strange smile curved Bellatrix's lips. That is not entirely true. There is one person he trusts with Nagini, when he must. One servant whose loyalty has never been questioned. Understanding dawned on Harry. You. Bellatrix inclined her head slightly. As his most devoted follower, I have been granted that honor on occasion. The implication hung between them, enormous in its potential. If Bellatrix could get close to Nagini, could create an opportunity for the snake to be destroyed. Why would you help me kill him? Harry asked, needing to hear her say it. Bellatrix's expression turned contemplative. Not for any noble reason, Potter. Not for your cause, or for redemption. But for truth. For 7 years in Azkaban, endured in the belief that he would return for his faithful. For decades of service, repaid with secrets and lies. Her voice hardened. And perhaps, most of all, because no wizard, however great, has the right to bind me to another without my consent. Not even the Dark Lord. It wasn't a complete conversion. It wasn't even a promise of lasting alliance. But it was something Harry had never expected, Bellatrix Lestrange, choosing her own path for perhaps the first time since she took the dark mark. When the moment comes, Harry said, how will I know you'll keep your word? Bellatrix extended her marked palm. The bond will tell you. As it tells me whether you are sincere in your offer of truth rather than forgiveness. After a moment's hesitation, Harry pressed his palm to hers. The silver dagger marks aligned, and magic surged between them, not the painful jolt of their previous contacts, but a steady flow of shared intent. No deception was possible in that moment of connection. Whatever her other motives might be, Bellatrix was sincere in her desire to create an opportunity for Nagini's destruction. The snake, then, Harry confirmed as they separated. When Voldemort enters the castle, you'll find a way to give us access to Nagini. Yes. Bellatrix glanced toward the entrance hall, where sounds of fighting had resumed. But you would be wise to distrust me in all other matters, Potter. This is a single act of realignment. Not a change of heart. Understood. Harry stepped back. And when it's over? When Voldemort is gone? Something like regret flickered in Bellatrix's eyes. Then we will see what remains of either of us. This bond was not meant to unite enemies, Potter. Its magic strains against our mutual antipathy. Before Harry could respond, a voice rang out from behind him. Harry! Death Eaters have breached the North Tower. Neville was running toward them, his face streaked with dust and blood. Bellatrix's demeanor changed instantly, the brief vulnerability vanishing beneath her customary mask of manic disdain. Time to return to your friends, Potter. The battle calls. With a final, searching look, Bellatrix turned and strode from the great hall, her black robes billowing behind her. Through their bond, Harry felt her steeling herself for what was to come, the performance of a lifetime, convincing Voldemort of her continued loyalty while creating the opportunity that would lead to his destruction. Are you all right? Neville asked as he reached Harry, eyeing Bellatrix's retreating form with undisguised hatred. I'm fine, Harry assured him. And I think we may have just gained an unexpected advantage. As he rejoined Ron and Hermione to explain what had transpired, Harry felt the bond with Bellatrix recede to its usual background hum. She was moving away from the castle now, heading toward the boundary where Voldemort waited with his army. Toward the moment when she would make good on her promise, or betray him one final time. Either way, the next hour would decide the fate of the wizarding world. And, Harry realized with sudden clarity, it would also decide whether the bond between him and Bellatrix Lestrange ultimately bound them together or tore them both apart. Voldemort waited at the edge of the forbidden forest, Nagini coiled protectively around his shoulders. The first wave of his forces had breached Hogwarts' outer defenses, but he had held back, savoring the moment when Harry Potter would at last be brought before him. "My lord." Bellatrix emerged from the shadows, kneeling at his feet. "Bella. You return to me." Voldemort's red eyes studied her intently. "What news from inside the castle?" "Potter is there, as expected," Bellatrix reported. "He fights alongside the Order and those children who call themselves Dumbledore's army." "And did you encounter him directly?" Voldemort asked, his voice deceptively soft. Bellatrix hesitated, knowing he would detect any lie. "Yes, my lord. The bond drew us together." "And?" Voldemort circled her slowly, Nagini's head swaying in time with his movements. "And I have learned much about his plans," Bellatrix said carefully. "He believes he has found a way to defeat you, my lord. Something to do with objects of power." Voldemort's hand shot out, grasping her chin and forcing her face upward. "What objects, precisely?" "He wasn't specific, my lord. But he mentioned a diadem. Said it was destroyed, along with a cup and a locket." Bellatrix met his gaze steadily, allowing him to see the truth of her words while keeping her deeper intentions shielded. Voldemort's grip tightened painfully. "And how did you respond to these claims?" "I laughed at his presumption, my lord," Bellatrix replied. "And I told him that nothing could threaten your power. That you had taken precautions beyond his understanding." Slowly, Voldemort released her. "The boy grows more dangerous with every hour. He must be eliminated tonight." "Yes, my lord." Bellatrix remained kneeling. "He is surrounded by defenders in the Great Hall. But there may be a way to draw him out." "Go on." Voldemort's attention sharpened. "The bond between us pulls in both directions," Bellatrix explained. "If I were to appear vulnerable, isolated from your protection, he would feel compelled to seek me out." "A trap," Voldemort mused. "Using your bond to lure him away from his protectors." "Exactly, my lord." Bellatrix looked up at him. "If I were to take Nagini and position myself in the Shrieking Shack, close enough to the battle to draw Potter, but removed from the main fighting, he would come. The bond would ensure it." Voldemort's lipless mouth curved in what might have been a smile. "And why should I entrust Nagini to you for this plan?" "Because the bond prevents Potter from harming me directly," Bellatrix replied smoothly. "That protection would extend to Nagini if she were in my immediate vicinity. And because..." She hesitated, then added softly, "because no one has served you more faithfully, my lord. No one has proven their devotion more completely." For a long moment, Voldemort said nothing. His red eyes seemed to pierce through her, searching for any hint of deception. Bellatrix kept her mind focused on her loyalty, on her decades of service, allowing those genuine emotions to shield her deeper intent. "Very well," Voldemort said finally. "Take Nagini to the Shrieking Shack. Lure Potter there. When he arrives, signal me immediately. I wish to end him personally." "Of course, my lord." Bellatrix bowed her head. "It will be as you command." Voldemort gestured, and Nagini uncoiled from his shoulders, slithering to the ground. "Go with Bellatrix," he hissed in Parseltongue. "Protect yourself at all costs." The massive snake regarded Bellatrix with intelligent eyes, then moved to her side. Bellatrix fought to keep her expression neutral as Nagini curled partially around her legs, the weight of the Horcrux pressing against her. "I will join the battle directly," Voldemort decided. "Draw Potter away when the fighting is at its peak. When all hope seems lost to his side." "A masterful strategy, my lord," Bellatrix murmured. "I shall not fail you." As she rose and departed with Nagini at her heels, Bellatrix felt the bond with Potter pulse with renewed urgency. He had sensed the shift in her proximity to the snake, had felt her successfully maneuvering Voldemort into this position. Now came the dangerous part. She needed to signal Potter about her location without alerting Voldemort to her betrayal. And she needed to time it perfectly, after Voldemort joined the battle but before he could achieve victory. The path to the Shrieking Shack was dark and overgrown. Behind her, Nagini slithered with unnatural grace, her scales whispering against the undergrowth. Bellatrix could feel the fragment of Voldemort's soul within the creature, pulsing with the same dark energy she had sensed in the diadem before its destruction. A part of her still recoiled at what she was planning. Decades of devotion didn't vanish in an instant, even faced with the evidence of Voldemort's deception. The mark on her arm burned with a constant reminder of her pledged loyalty. But the silver dagger mark on her palm burned brighter. The bond with Potter, unwanted, unexpected, uncontrollable, had forced her to see truths she had long denied. About Voldemort. About herself. The Shrieking Shack loomed ahead, its dilapidated form a stark silhouette against the night sky. Bellatrix entered through a broken door, Nagini following close behind. The interior was dusty and abandoned, furniture broken by years of werewolf transformations and student pranks. "Make yourself comfortable," she told the snake, an edge of her old madness creeping into her voice. "We have a guest coming soon." Nagini coiled in the center of what had once been a sitting room, her massive head raised as if scenting the air. The snake understood more than a normal serpent would, another sign of the soul fragment she contained. Bellatrix paced the small room, considering her next move. She needed to alert Potter to her location, to the opportunity she had created. But how to do so without revealing her intention to Nagini, who would certainly report any suspicious behavior back to Voldemort? The answer came through the bond itself. Focusing on the connection between them, Bellatrix deliberately lowered her mental barriers, just enough to allow Potter to sense her precise location, and the proximity of Nagini. The response was immediate, acknowledgement, determination, and a plan forming in Potter's mind. He would come, but not alone. The Weasley boy and the Granger girl would accompany him, all three armed with basilisk fangs. All she needed to do was keep Nagini here and prevent the snake from warning Voldemort until it was too late. "Your master joins the battle," she told Nagini, settling into a broken armchair. "Soon, Harry Potter will fall. And you and I, dear Nagini, have the honor of springing the final trap." The snake regarded her with unblinking eyes, then lowered her head to the dusty floor, seemingly content to wait. Through the bond, Bellatrix felt Potter's progress, moving through the castle, navigating the chaos of battle, making his way gradually toward the secret passage that led to the Shrieking Shack. With him, she sensed his determination, his focus, and beneath it all, a lingering distrust of her intentions. Good. He was wise to doubt her. This single act of betrayal against Voldemort didn't erase the fundamental opposition between them. Didn't change who she was or what she believed about blood purity, about power, about the natural order of the wizarding world. All it changed was her understanding of Voldemort himself, not as the visionary leader she had believed in, but as a manipulator who had used her devotion while never truly valuing it. From the direction of Hogwarts, a massive explosion lit up the night sky. The battle had intensified. Through her dark mark, Bellatrix felt Voldemort's triumph as he entered the fray directly. Now was the time. Rising from the chair, Bellatrix approached Nagini. "We should prepare for Potter's arrival," she told the snake. "Position ourselves for maximum advantage." Nagini raised her head, watching as Bellatrix began moving furniture, creating a semicircular arrangement that would funnel anyone entering the room into a contained space before the snake. "Perfect for an ambush, don't you think?" Bellatrix smiled, her old manic energy returning as she worked. "We'll let him see me first, the bond will ensure he focuses on me. Then you, precious Nagini, can strike from behind." The snake seemed to approve of this strategy, slithering to position herself behind the makeshift barrier Bellatrix had created. Through the bond, Bellatrix felt Potter drawing closer. He had reached the Whomping Willow, was navigating the secret passage beneath it. The Weasley boy and Granger girl were with him, as planned. For a brief, disorienting moment, Bellatrix found herself hoping they would succeed, not for their sake, or for the victory of their side, but for the vindication of her own shattered faith. If Voldemort could be proven false, then perhaps her decades of devotion weren't a complete waste. Perhaps they were merely misplaced, as Potter had suggested. A sound from the passage leading to the shack's lower level interrupted her thoughts. Potter had arrived. "They're here," she whispered to Nagini. "Remember, let me draw his attention first." The snake coiled tighter, ready to strike. Bellatrix positioned herself in the center of the room, her back to the hidden passage, her wand held loosely at her side. "Potter," she called, loud enough to be heard below. "I know you're there. Come up and face me." Through the bond, she felt his hesitation, his assessment of potential traps. Then, decision made, his movement up the creaking stairs. The door to the room swung open. Harry Potter stood in the threshold, his wand raised, his green eyes locked on hers. Behind him, barely visible in the shadows, waited his two friends. "Bellatrix," he acknowledged. "You're alone." "Not entirely." She smiled, making no effort to hide Nagini's presence behind the furniture. Through their bond, she deliberately projected the snake's exact location. Potter's eyes flicked briefly to the barrier she had created, then back to her face. "Voldemort sent you here with Nagini?" "The Dark Lord recognizes the value of our bond," Bellatrix replied, loud enough for Nagini to hear. "He knows you would be drawn to me. That you couldn't resist the pull." "He's right about that," Potter agreed, taking a step into the room. "The bond does pull us together. But he's wrong about why I came." "Oh." Bellatrix raised an eyebrow, maintaining the performance. "Do enlighten me, Potter." Behind her, she sensed Nagini growing restless, perhaps sensing the deception. The snake began to move, slithering silently toward the edge of the barrier. Potter took another step forward, his friend still concealed in the shadows behind him. "I came because we have unfinished business, you and I. Because what started in that vault needs to end, one way or another." "How poetic," Bellatrix mocked, even as she sent a clear warning through their bond, "Nagini is moving. Act now." Potter's response was immediate and unexpected. Instead of signaling his friends to attack the snake, he lunged forward and grabbed Bellatrix's marked hand with his own. The connection blazed between them, silver light erupting where their palms met. Through the bond, completely unshielded now, flowed everything: Potter's plan, his determination, and something else, a vision from the cup, from the diadem, from the Horcruxes they had destroyed. A vision of what awaited Voldemort in death. Of the broken, mutilated soul fragment that was all that remained of his humanity. Bellatrix gasped as the vision filled her mind. So this was what became of those who split their souls. This was the cost of the immortality her lord had sought. At that moment, Nagini struck. The massive snake lunged from behind the barrier, fangs bared, heading directly for Potter's exposed back. But instead of finding her target, Nagini met the point of a gleaming sword, not a basilisk fang as Bellatrix had expected, but the sword of Gryffindor itself, wielded by Neville Longbottom, who had stepped from the shadows behind Ron and Hermione. The sword flashed down in a perfect arc, severing Nagini's head from her body in a single stroke. A scream tore through the shack, not from the snake, whose death was instantaneous, but from miles away, from Voldemort himself as he felt the destruction of his final Horcrux. Bellatrix felt it too, through the residual connection of her dark mark. Pain beyond measure, rage beyond reason, and beneath it all, fear. For the first time since she had known him, the Dark Lord knew fear. "It's done," Potter said, still gripping her hand. "He's mortal now." The silver light between their palms faded gradually. Bellatrix found herself staring at Nagini's severed head, at the eyes already glazing in death. The Horcrux was gone, she could feel the absence of that dark energy. "You brought Longbottom," she observed, her voice strange to her own ears. "Of all people." "It had to be him," Potter said simply. "For his parents." Neville stood over Nagini's corpse, the sword still in his hands, his eyes fixed on Bellatrix with a hatred that transcended words. "You should kill me now," Bellatrix told him, making no move to defend herself. "It's the best chance you'll ever have." "Believe me, I want to," Neville replied, his voice shaking. "For what you did to my parents. For all the lives you've destroyed." "But you won't," Bellatrix finished for him. "Because of the bond. Because killing me might harm precious Potter here." Neville's grip on the sword tightened. "That's the only reason you're still breathing." An explosion rocked the shrieking shack, more violent than before. Through both the dark mark and the bond with Potter, Bellatrix felt Voldemort's fury approaching, a storm of magical rage heading directly for them. "He knows," she said unnecessarily. "He's coming. Then we need to move. Now." Potter released her hand, turning to his friends. "Get back to the castle. Help with the evacuation. I'll face him alone." "No bloody way," Ron objected. "We're staying with you. This isn't a discussion." Potter's voice hardened. "Voldemort is coming for me. I need to draw him away from the school, from everyone else." "And what about her?" Hermione asked, gesturing toward Bellatrix. "We can't just leave her here. She's still a Death Eater, Harry. Bond or no bond." Bellatrix laughed, the sound high and broken. "Don't worry, Mudblood. I have no intention of interfering in your little heroics. My part in this is done." "No," Potter said unexpectedly. "It isn't. You're coming with me." Bellatrix stared at him. "What?" "You helped create this opportunity," Potter said. "You chose to betray Voldemort, to help us destroy Nagini. Now you get to see it through to the end. You trust me to stand with you against the Dark Lord?" Bellatrix asked incredulously. "Not for a second," Potter replied with surprising honesty. "But the bond won't let you harm me directly. And I think you deserve to witness what your choice has led to. For better or worse." Bellatrix felt something unexpected stir within her, not gratitude, exactly, but a kind of recognition. Potter was offering her what she had asked for in the Great Hall, acknowledgement of her agency, of her choice to turn against Voldemort. "Very well," she said after a moment. "I will witness the end, whatever it may be." Another explosion, closer this time. Voldemort was nearly upon them. "Go," Potter told his friends urgently. "Get everyone out of the castle. I'll lead him to the Forbidden Forest, away from Hogwarts." Reluctantly, Ron and Hermione moved toward the exit. Neville lingered, his gaze still fixed on Bellatrix. "If you betray him," he told her, his voice deadly quiet, "if you do anything to help Voldemort, bond or no bond, I will find a way to end you. No matter what it costs." "I would expect nothing less from Frank and Alice's son," Bellatrix replied, surprising herself with the lack of mockery in her tone. With a final, warning look, Neville followed Ron and Hermione down the passage, leaving Potter and Bellatrix alone with Nagini's corpse. "He'll be here any second," Potter said, moving toward a different exit that led directly onto the grounds. "We need to draw him away from the school." Bellatrix followed, an unfamiliar sensation building in her chest. For the first time in decades, she was acting without Voldemort's direction, without his approval. The freedom was terrifying, exhilarating, and she didn't yet know what to make of it. One thing was certain, tonight would end with either Voldemort's death or Potter's. And whichever way it went, Bellatrix Lestrange's world would never be the same. As they stepped outside, the night air cool against her skin, Bellatrix felt the bond between them pulse with shared understanding. They were enemies still, opposed in almost every belief and value. But for this moment, this night, they were bound by something stronger than enmity, a choice made freely, a truth acknowledged, and a future neither could clearly see. "Ready?" Potter asked, his wand gripped tightly in his hand. Bellatrix nodded, her own wand at her side. "Lead on, Potter. Let's meet your destiny, or mine. Together, the boy who lived and the Dark Lord's most devoted lieutenant turned toward the Forbidden Forest, toward the final confrontation that would decide the fate of the wizarding world. And as they walked, the bond between them hummed with possibilities neither had yet imagined. Chapter 3, Bonds unbroken. The Forbidden Forest loomed before them, its ancient trees silhouetted against the smoke-filled sky. Behind them, Hogwarts Castle burned, magical fires of green and purple licking at its stone walls as the battle raged on. Harry and Bellatrix moved in tense silence, the bond between them pulsing with shared anticipation. "He's close," Harry murmured, his scar burning with proximity to Voldemort. The pain was different now, sharper, cleaner without the Horcrux connection that had linked them for so long. Bellatrix nodded, her own connection to her master throbbing through the dark mark on her arm. "Yes. He knows about Nagini. He knows what we've done." "What you've done," Harry corrected, glancing at her. In the dim light, Bellatrix's face seemed hollowed out, the manic energy that usually animated her features replaced by something more complex, resolve mingled with dread. "Don't mistake necessity for nobility, Potter," she replied, her voice lacking its usual edge. "I chose vengeance, not redemption." They reached a small clearing, moonlight filtering through the canopy to illuminate a circle of ancient oaks. Harry stopped, sensing the rightness of the place. This was where it would end, one way or another. "He'll come to us," Harry said, turning to face the direction from which they'd come. "No need to hunt him." Bellatrix moved to stand beside him, not quite an ally but no longer purely an enemy. "What happens when he arrives? Do you have some grand plan, some secret weapon Dumbledore left you?" Harry shook his head, a grim smile touching his lips. "No. Just truth. And choice." "Truth and choice," Bellatrix echoed mockingly, though there was a hollowness to her derision. "Such Gryffindor concepts. They're what brought us here," Harry pointed out. "The truth about what Voldemort did to himself. Your choice to help destroy Nagini." Before Bellatrix could respond, the air around them seemed to thicken, magic crackling with barely contained fury. A cold wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing the ambient moonlight and plunging them into darkness. "Lumos," Harry murmured, his wand tip igniting. Beside him, Bellatrix did the same. A figure emerged from between the trees, tall, skeletal, moving with inhuman grace. Lord Voldemort stepped into the clearing, his red eyes glowing in the wandlight, fixed not on Harry but on Bellatrix. "Bella," he said, his high voice soft with deadly promise. "My most faithful servant. My most devoted follower." Each word dripped with ice. "My greatest disappointment." Bellatrix visibly flinched but held her ground. Through their bond, Harry felt her conflict, decades of conditioning warring with recent revelations. "My lord," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Voldemort's roar echoed through the forest. "You dare address me still? After your betrayal? After you helped destroy?" He caught himself, glancing at Harry. "After what you've done?" "What I've done?" Bellatrix's voice gained strength, surprising both men. "What I've done is finally ask what you've done to yourself. To your soul. 7 pieces, my lord. Scattered like trinkets, hidden even from those who would die for you." Voldemort's lipless mouth curved in a sneer. "And you believe Potter, do you? You take his word over mine, after all we've shared?" "I believe what I felt," Bellatrix replied, pressing her marked palm to her chest. "What I experienced when each piece was destroyed. You never trusted me with the truth, my lord. Never deemed me worthy of knowing what I protected. Because you are a servant," Voldemort hissed. "However valued. However cherished. Your role was to obey, not to understand." Harry watched the exchange in silence, feeling Bellatrix's pain through their bond. Decades of devotion dismissed so casually, her sacrifice reduced to mere servitude. It was, perhaps, the cruelest thing Voldemort could have said to her. I was more than that, Bellatrix whispered, and Harry heard in her voice the echo of the young woman she had once been, brilliant, ambitious, destined for more than becoming someone else's tool. I gave you everything. And now you stand with Potter. Voldemort's gaze shifted to Harry, then to the silver mark visible on Bellatrix's palm. Because of this bond? This magical accident? The bond opened my eyes, Bellatrix admitted. But the choice was mine. As was the betrayal you never anticipated, because you never truly saw me as capable of independent thought. Voldemort's fury manifested as crackling energy around him, scorching the ground where he stood. Enough. I did not come to debate with traitors. I came to end Harry Potter, once and for all. He raised his wand, pointing it directly at Harry's heart. Step aside, Bella. Your punishment will come later. Harry tensed, ready to move, but Bellatrix remained where she was, half a step in front of him. The bond won't allow it, she said quietly. I cannot step aside and let you kill him. The magic won't permit it. Then you will die with him, Voldemort declared coldly. Through the bond, Harry felt Bellatrix's acceptance of this possibility, and something else, something she was deliberately projecting toward him, a plan, or the beginnings of one. The bond, her thoughts whispered in his mind. It links our magic. Use it. Harry didn't fully understand what she meant, but he trusted the certainty behind her suggestion. When Voldemort raised his wand higher, Harry acted on instinct, grabbing Bellatrix's marked hand with his own. The effect was immediate and extraordinary. Silver light erupted where their palms connected, spiraling up their arms to envelop them both in a luminous cocoon. Harry felt Bellatrix's magic flow into him, mingling with his own, darker, wilder, but undeniably powerful. What is this? Voldemort demanded, taking an involuntary step back. The unbreakable marriage bond, Bellatrix replied, her voice stronger now, amplified by the shared magic. The oldest form of magical contract, binding not just lives but magic itself. A parlor trick, Voldemort scoffed, though his red eyes tracked the silver light warily. It cannot save you from the killing curse. Perhaps not, Harry said, feeling Bellatrix's knowledge flowing into his mind, her decades of magical study suddenly accessible to him. But there's one thing about these old bonds you might have overlooked, Tom. Voldemort's eyes narrowed at the use of his birth name. And what is that, Potter? They were created for war, Bellatrix continued, seamlessly picking up Harry's thought. For alliances between powerful magical families. For combining strengths against common enemies. Understanding dawned on Voldemort's serpentine face. You cannot possibly think, but it was already happening. The silver light binding Harry and Bellatrix pulsed brighter, their magical signatures harmonizing. Harry felt his own magic changing, darkening with Bellatrix's influence, even as hers lightened with his. Power unlike anything he'd experienced before surged through him. Now, Potter. Bellatrix's voice rang in his mind. Expelliarmus. Harry shouted, channeling their combined magic through his wand. At the same instant, Voldemort cried, Avada Kedavra. The spells collided in midair, but unlike in the graveyard 3 years earlier, there was no priori incantatum. Instead, Harry's disarming charm, fueled by the merged power of two formidable magical bloodlines, slammed through Voldemort's killing curse as if it were mist. The red jet struck Voldemort squarely in the chest, catapulting him backward. The Elder Wand, which he had wielded with such deadly precision, flew from his grasp in a graceful arc, landing in the grass at Harry's feet. Silence fell over the clearing. Voldemort lay sprawled against the base of an oak tree, wandless but very much alive, his red eyes wide with shock. Impossible, he breathed. Harry bent slowly, retrieving the Elder Wand. He felt its allegiance shift instantly, recognizing him as its master. Beside him, still connected by their joined hands, Bellatrix trembled with the aftermath of their magical merger. It's over, Tom, Harry said quietly. You have no more Horcruxes. No more safeguards. You're mortal, like the rest of us. Kill him, Bellatrix urged, her voice hoarse. End it now, Potter. Harry glanced at her, feeling her bloodlust through their bond, the desire to see Voldemort destroyed, erased from existence. But alongside it, he sensed something deeper, her need to witness the death of the illusion she had served for so long. Her need for closure. No, Harry replied, surprising both Bellatrix and Voldemort. I won't kill him. Potter, Bellatrix began, outraged. Death would be too quick, Harry continued, his eyes fixed on Voldemort. Too easy. I want him to live, to face what he's done. To stand trial before the wizarding world and be judged for his crimes. Voldemort laughed, a high, cold sound devoid of humor. How very righteous of you, Harry Potter. But you forget, I still have followers. Death Eaters who will come for me, who will free me. Do you? Harry asked mildly. Look at Bellatrix. Your most devoted servant turned against you the moment she discovered you'd been using her. How long do you think the others will stay loyal once they learn the truth about what you are? About what you did to yourself? Uncertainty flickered across Voldemort's face, quickly masked by contempt. They will remain loyal out of fear, if nothing else. Fear only works when you have power, Bellatrix said softly. And your power, my lord, died with your Horcruxes. She released Harry's hand, breaking the silver cocoon that had enveloped them. The rush of combined magic subsided, leaving both of them drained but still standing. With deliberate movements, Bellatrix approached Voldemort, kneeling before him one final time. I gave you everything, she whispered, her voice carrying clearly in the still night air. My youth. My sanity. My freedom. My magic. And in return, you gave me lies. Voldemort's red eyes narrowed. I gave you purpose, Bella. Direction for your considerable talents. Without me, you would have been nothing but a pure-blood wife, breeding the next generation of mediocrity. Perhaps, she acknowledged. Or perhaps I would have found my own path. We'll never know. She rose, turning her back on him in a final, symbolic rejection. But I know this, whatever happens next, I am no longer yours. As if summoned by her words, sounds of approach echoed through the forest, voices calling Harry's name, wandlight flickering between distant trees. The battle at Hogwarts must have ended, survivors searching for their champion. It's finished, Harry said, raising the Elder Wand once more. With a complex movement drawn from Bellatrix's knowledge, he conjured magical restraints that bound Voldemort to the tree. They're coming to take you to Azkaban. Potter. Ron's voice carried through the trees. Harry. Where are you? Harry turned toward the sound, about to respond, when he caught a flicker of movement from Bellatrix. She had drawn her wand, aiming not at him but at Voldemort. Don't, Harry said quietly. Bellatrix's hand trembled. He deserves death. For what he did to me. To all of us. Yes, Harry agreed. He does. But if you kill him now, you'll never be free of him. He'll own your soul forever. Their eyes met, and through the bond, Harry felt her struggle, the desire for vengeance warring with the longing for true liberation. Slowly, painfully, Bellatrix lowered her wand. Harry. Hermione burst into the clearing, followed closely by Ron and several other members of the Order. They froze at the tableau before them, Harry standing over a bound and wandless Voldemort, Bellatrix Lestrange at his side. It's over, Harry told them. Voldemort is defeated. The battle is won. The reactions were immediate, cries of joy, disbelieving laughter, tears of relief. But beneath the celebration, Harry felt Bellatrix withdraw both physically and mentally, retreating into herself as reality set in. They had won, yes. But for her, the future remained uncertain at best. Harry, you did it. Ron exclaimed, clapping him on the shoulder. You actually, he broke off, noticing Bellatrix for the first time. What is she doing here? Why isn't she restrained? She helped us, Harry said simply. Without her, Nagini would never have been destroyed. Voldemort would still have a Horcrux. That doesn't erase what she's done, Hermione pointed out, her wand trained warily on Bellatrix. Sirius. Neville's parents. Countless others. No, Harry agreed. It doesn't. He turned to Bellatrix, who stood perfectly still, her face an unreadable mask. You'll have to answer for those crimes. You know that. Bellatrix's laugh was a hollow echo of her former manic glee. Of course. The victors always demand justice. Her eyes flicked to the silver mark on her palm, then to the matching one on Harry's. And what of this? What of our bond? It was the question Harry had been avoiding, the complication none of them had fully addressed. The unbreakable marriage bond still linked them, would continue to link them regardless of what happened next. I don't know, he admitted. But we'll figure it out. Kingsley Shacklebolt stepped forward, his deep voice resonating with authority. Bellatrix Lestrange, you are under arrest for crimes against wizardkind. He glanced at Harry. Whatever her recent actions, she must face the Wizengamot. I understand, Harry nodded. But there's something you should know. He held up his marked palm. We're bound by ancient magic. An unbreakable marriage bond. It can't be severed except by death, and even then, the survivor loses a significant portion of their magic. Kingsley's eyes widened slightly, the only indication of his surprise. That complicates matters. You think? Ron muttered. Take her into custody, Harry said. But carefully. What affects her affects me, at least to some degree. As Aurors moved to secure Bellatrix, Harry felt her resignation through the bond. She had known this moment would come, had accepted it as the price of her choices. But beneath the resignation lay something unexpected, relief. The burden of devotion to Voldemort had been lifted, leaving her, for perhaps the first time since taking the dark mark, truly free to determine her own path. Potter, she said softly as they led her away. This isn't over between us. I know, Harry replied, feeling the truth of it in the bond that connected them. It's only beginning. The Great Hall of Hogwarts had been transformed into an impromptu hospital and gathering place for the survivors. Dawn light streamed through the enchanted ceiling, illuminating the aftermath of battle, wounded fighters being treated, reunited families embracing, the dead laid out with dignity along one wall. Harry moved through it all in a daze, accepting thanks and congratulations with numb politeness. The events in the forest felt distant already, dreamlike. Voldemort had been taken to a secure facility awaiting trial. Bellatrix had been transported to Azkaban under heavy guard. And Harry. Harry was left to reconcile his new reality, the prophecy fulfilled, the war over, and an unexpected magical bond tying him forever to one of his greatest enemies. Harry. Hermione approached, pressing a cup of hot tea into his hands. You need to rest. You haven't slept in nearly 2 days. I can't, he replied, though exhaustion pulled at his very bones. Every time I close my eyes, I feel her in Azkaban. It's difficult. Hermione's face softened with sympathy. The bond is still that strong. Stronger, maybe. Now that we've used it together, combined our magic. It's like. Harry struggled to find the words. Like having a window always open to somewhere cold and dark. I can close the curtains, but I can't shut out the draft. Ron joined them, his arm in a sling from a curse that had caught him during the battle. They're saying you two performed some kind of ancient magic in the forest. That your combined power overwhelmed you know who. Something like that, Harry nodded. The bond allowed us to merge our magic temporarily. It was incredible. Terrifying, but incredible. And now? Ron asked the question hanging over all of them. Now I have to figure out how to live with it, Harry said simply. With her, always in the back of my mind. Hermione bit her lip, the expression Harry knew meant she was working through a complex problem. There might be a precedent for this. Not exactly, of course, unbreakable marriage bonds are incredibly rare. But there are other forms of magical connection that have been studied. Like what? Harry asked, grasping at any potential solution. Well, certain magical cultures practiced ritualistic bonds between warriors, not marriage exactly, but a kind of brotherhood of magic. They learned to control the flow of information and emotion, to create boundaries, I suppose. Hermione's forehead creased in concentration. I'd need to research it properly. It's worth looking into, Harry agreed. Because right now, the bond is overwhelming. Especially with her in Azkaban. Speaking of which, Ron said, lowering his voice, what happens when they put her on trial? If she's sentenced to the Dementor's kiss. The question hung heavy in the air. The kiss would destroy Bellatrix's soul while leaving her body alive, a fate that might have unknown consequences for Harry through their bond. I don't know, Harry admitted. But I intend to testify at her trial. To explain her role in Nagini's destruction, in Voldemort's defeat. Harry, Hermione began cautiously, I understand she helped at the end, but Bellatrix Lestrange has committed terrible crimes. Unforgivable crimes. I know that better than most, Harry said, thinking of Sirius falling through the veil, of Neville's parents lost in their own minds. I'm not suggesting she shouldn't be punished. Just that all the facts should be considered. Before they could discuss it further, Kingsley approached, his face grave despite the victory. Harry, a word. He gestured to a quieter corner of the hall. Harry followed, leaving Ron and Hermione to their concerned whispers. The Minister for Magic has called an emergency session of the Wizengamot, Kingsley informed him once they were relatively private. Voldemort will be tried first, followed immediately by his inner circle. Including Bellatrix Lestrange. That's quick, Harry observed. When? 3 days from now. Kingsley studied Harry's face. They want you to testify, of course. As the primary witness to Voldemort's defeat. And Bellatrix's role in it, Harry added. Kingsley nodded slowly. Yes. Though I must warn you, Harry, many in the Wizengamot will be skeptical of any testimony that paints Bellatrix Lestrange in anything but the darkest light. Her crimes are well documented and deeply personal to many influential families. I understand that, Harry said. But the truth is what it is. She betrayed Voldemort at the end. She helped destroy his final Horcrux. She combined her magic with mine to defeat him. And why did she do these things? Kingsley asked, his deep voice genuinely curious. From what I knew of Bellatrix Lestrange, her devotion to Voldemort bordered on religious fervor. Harry considered the question, feeling through the bond the complex tangle of motivations that had driven Bellatrix's final choice. Betrayal, he said finally. She discovered that Voldemort had been using her, lying to her. That he never trusted her with the truth about his Horcruxes, despite her years of devotion. Harry touched the silver mark on his palm. The bond gave her a window into my experiences, my knowledge. She saw through it that Voldemort wasn't what she thought he was. Revenge, then, Kingsley summarized. Not redemption. Does the difference matter? Harry asked. The result was the same. Kingsley sighed. To the Wizengamot, it might. Intent matters in magical law. He placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. Get some rest, Harry. The coming days will be challenging enough without exhaustion clouding your judgment. As Kingsley walked away, Harry felt a sudden sharp spike of emotion through the bond, fear mingled with resignation. Bellatrix, in her Azkaban cell, had just learned of her impending trial. Without thinking, Harry reached for the connection, deliberately opening himself to it for the first time since the forest. They're trying you in 3 days, he projected toward her. I'll testify about what happened. Her response came immediately, surprisingly clear despite the distance. don't waste your heroic impulses on me, Potter. The outcome is predetermined. Maybe, he acknowledged. But the truth deserves to be heard. A bitter laugh echoed through their bond. Truth. The victors write history, Potter. My truth died in that forest with my lord's defeat. Not entirely, Harry countered. I was there too. I felt what you felt. I know why you turned against him. Her presence in his mind withdrew slightly, uncomfortable with his understanding. And what good will that do? My actions don't erase my past. Nor would I want them to. Harry recognized the pride in her response, Bellatrix Lestrange, even now, refusing to disavow her choices or beg for mercy. It was, in its way, a kind of integrity, however twisted. 3 days, he repeated. Try not to antagonize the Dementors before then. Another laugh, this one with a hint of her old manic edge. The Dementors are in disarray with the Dark Lord's defeat. Half have fled already. The rest circle aimlessly, unsure where their allegiance should lie. Harry hadn't considered that the Dementors would be affected by Voldemort's fall. It made sense, they had been his natural allies, creatures of despair drawn to his promise of a world filled with suffering. Good, he responded. One less thing to worry about. He felt her curiosity through the bond. You worry about me, Potter. How touching. I worry about what happens to me if they kiss you, Harry clarified, though it wasn't entirely true. Despite everything, despite all the harm she had done, he found himself concerned for Bellatrix as a person, damaged, dangerous, but fundamentally human in ways Voldemort had never been. Ah, she responded, and he felt her understanding. Self-preservation. Much more believable than altruism. Harry closed the connection, unwilling to continue the exchange while so thoroughly drained. The brief contact had confirmed what he already suspected, Bellatrix Lestrange was still very much herself, bond or no bond. Her assistance in Voldemort's defeat hadn't transformed her into an ally or a friend. She remained what she had always been, complex, dangerous, and utterly unpredictable. And now, for better or worse, permanently connected to him. The courtroom was packed to capacity, wizards and witches crowded onto benches, reporters from magical publications around the world jostling for better views. The trial of the century, they were calling it. The day Lord Voldemort and his inner circle would face justice. Harry sat in the witness area, uncomfortably aware of the stares directed his way. Beside him, Ron and Hermione provided silent support, having insisted on accompanying him despite his protests. They're bringing him in, Hermione murmured, nodding toward the side door. Voldemort entered, surrounded by Aurors, his hands bound with magical restraints that glowed with containment charms. He looked diminished somehow, still fearsome with his serpentine features and red eyes, but lesser without the aura of invincibility that had once surrounded him. His trial was surprisingly brief. The evidence against him was overwhelming, the testimonies damning. Harry spoke of the graveyard, of the Department of Mysteries, of the final battle. Others recounted atrocities committed during both wizarding wars. Voldemort himself remained largely silent, speaking only to confirm his identity and to declare, when asked for any final statement, that wizards will one day recognize the truth of my vision. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all charges. The sentence, handed down by the new Minister for Magic herself, was life imprisonment in a specially constructed cell at Azkaban, designed to permanently suppress his magic. As they led him away, Voldemort's red eyes found Harry's across the courtroom. There was hatred there, certainly, but also something like bewilderment, the confusion of a man who had been so certain of his path, only to find it led to his downfall. Then the door closed behind him, and Lord Voldemort passed from the active stage of wizarding history into its darkest footnotes. A brief recess was called before the next trial. Harry remained seated, feeling through the bond Bellatrix's awareness of what had transpired. She had witnessed her master's sentencing through Harry's eyes, experienced his reaction through Harry's emotions. "You all right, mate?" Ron asked, noting Harry's distraction. Fine, Harry assured him. Just connecting some things. The doors opened again, and the courtroom fell silent as Bellatrix Lestrange was escorted in. Unlike Voldemort, whose restraints had been almost ceremonial given his weakened state, Bellatrix was bound thoroughly, magical shackles on wrists and ankles, a charm limiting her ability to speak except when directly addressed by the court. Her eyes found Harry immediately, drawn by the bond that pulled constantly between them. She looked terrible. Azkaban, even without Dementors at full strength, had taken its toll. Her wild black hair hung in matted tangles, her face gaunt, the prisoner's robes hanging loosely on her frame. But her eyes remained the same, heavy-lidded, intense, missing nothing. They've made quite a show of me, her thought came clearly through the bond. The mad dog, safely chained. Harry didn't respond directly, but he knew she felt his discomfort at her treatment. The charges against Bellatrix Lestrange were read aloud: murder, torture, use of unforgivable curses, conspiracy, prison escape, and dozens more. The recitation took nearly 20 minutes, a litany of horrors that left the courtroom in stunned silence. When asked how she pleaded, Bellatrix's laugh rang out, startling the Wizengamot members. Guilty, of course, she said, her voice hoarse but still carrying that hint of manic energy. I did it all. And I'd do most of it again. Murmurs ran through the courtroom. Harry winced at her defiance. She wasn't making this easy for herself or for him. The prosecution presented its case methodically, calling witnesses to testify about Bellatrix's crimes spanning both wizarding wars. Family members of her victims spoke of lives destroyed. Aurors recounted battles where she had shown particular cruelty. By the time they finished, hours later, the mood in the courtroom was one of grim certainty. This woman deserved the harshest punishment wizarding law could provide. Then it was the defense's turn. Bellatrix had refused counsel, choosing to represent herself, a decision the court had reluctantly accepted given her right to do so as a pureblood from an ancient and noble house. But when invited to present her defense, she merely smiled. I have no defense, she said simply. I served my lord faithfully. Until I didn't. The chief warlock frowned. Mrs. Lestrange, this is your opportunity to speak on your own behalf. To present mitigating factors for the court's consideration. Bellatrix's eyes flicked to Harry again. I have only one statement to make. At the end, when it mattered most, I chose differently. I betrayed the Dark Lord and aided Potter in his destruction. Not out of remorse, but out of recognition of a greater betrayal, my lord's betrayal of my devotion. The courtroom erupted in confused whispers. This was not the raving fanaticism they had expected from Bellatrix Lestrange, but something more calculated, more self-aware. The court calls Harry Potter, the chief warlock announced, silencing the murmurs. Harry rose, conscious of every eye upon him as he moved to the witness stand. After being sworn in, he faced the assembled Wizengamot, his expression resolute. Mr. Potter, the prosecutor began, you were present for the defendant's alleged betrayal of he who must not be named. Please describe these events for the court. Harry took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts. It began in the Lestrange vault at Gringotts, he said, and proceeded to explain the accidental activation of the marriage contract, the bond it created, and the gradual way it had affected both him and Bellatrix. This bond, the prosecutor clarified, allowed you to experience each other's thoughts and memories? To some extent, Harry nodded. Not complete access, but impressions, emotions, sometimes specific thoughts when deliberately shared. And you claim that through this bond, the defendant came to doubt Voldemort's trustworthiness? Yes, Harry confirmed. When we destroyed the Horcruxes, pieces of Voldemort's soul he had hidden to achieve immortality, Bellatrix felt it through our bond. She realized he had never trusted her with the truth about them, despite her years of devoted service. So her betrayal was motivated by personal grievance, the prosecutor summarized, not by moral awakening or remorse. Harry hesitated, feeling Bellatrix's sardonic amusement through the bond. Go on, Potter. Tell them the truth. No need to paint me as reformed. Her motivations were complex, Harry said carefully. But yes, primarily she acted from a sense of personal betrayal rather than moral objection to Voldemort's goals. The prosecutor nodded, satisfied. Nevertheless, you assert that her actions materially contributed to Voldemort's defeat? Without question, Harry said firmly. She deliberately created the opportunity for us to destroy Nagini, Voldemort's snake and his final Horcrux. She convinced Voldemort to entrust the snake to her care, then positioned herself where we could reach them both. And following this, she aided you directly against Voldemort himself? Yes. In the Forbidden Forest, when Voldemort confronted us, she stood with me. We combined our magic through the bond to overpower him. Harry held up his marked palm. The unbreakable marriage bond allowed us to merge our magical signatures temporarily. That combined power is what finally defeated him. Murmurs swept through the courtroom again. The prosecutor allowed them to subside before continuing. Mr. Potter, given your unique connection to the defendant, what is your recommendation to this court regarding her sentence? The question hung in the air, waited with expectation. Through the bond, Harry felt Bellatrix's surprise. She hadn't anticipated being asked for his opinion on her fate. Bellatrix Lestrange has committed terrible crimes, Harry began, his voice steady. Crimes that demand justice. But in the final account, her actions helped end Voldemort's reign of terror. Without her betrayal, without her assistance, many more lives might have been lost. He paused, weighing his next words carefully. I believe that should be considered in her sentencing. Are you suggesting leniency, Mr. Potter? The chief warlock asked, clearly skeptical. I'm suggesting proportionality, Harry replied. Azkaban is appropriate. But the Dementor's kiss. He shook his head. That would be a mistake. Not just because of our bond and its unknown effects on me, but because it would deny the complexity of what happened. The fact that even Voldemort's most devoted follower ultimately turned against him. The courtroom had gone completely silent, absorbing his words. Bellatrix herself sat utterly still, her expression unreadable, though through the bond Harry felt her astonishment at his defense. After several more questions clarifying technical details of the bond and the final confrontation, Harry was dismissed. As he returned to his seat, his eyes met Bellatrix's briefly. No words passed between them, but the connection thrummed with unspoken acknowledgement. The Wizengamot deliberated for hours. When they finally returned, the chief warlock's expression was grave. Bellatrix Lestrange, you have been found guilty of all charges, he announced. The enormity of your crimes cannot be overstated, nor can they be erased by your 11th-hour change of allegiance. Bellatrix nodded, accepting this assessment without protest. However, the chief warlock continued, this court acknowledges the testimony of Harry Potter regarding your role in Voldemort's ultimate defeat. We also recognize the unprecedented magical situation created by the unbreakable marriage bond between yourself and Mr. Potter. Harry felt a ripple of tension through the bond. Bellatrix was holding her breath, he realized. For all her bravado, she feared the kiss as any sane person would. Therefore, it is the judgment of this court that you be sentenced to life imprisonment in Azkaban, with periodic review of your case every 10 years. The chief warlock's gaze was stern. The possibility of the Dementor's kiss is hereby suspended, pending further study of the bond's properties and potential consequences. Relief flooded through the bond, not just Bellatrix's, but Harry's as well. Life in Azkaban was a harsh sentence by any measure, but it preserved the possibility, however remote, of eventual reconsideration. More importantly, it preserved her soul, and by extension, the integrity of Harry's magic. Additionally, the chief warlock added, given the unique nature of the bond between yourself and Mr. Potter, provisions will be made for controlled contact between you, under strict magical supervision, to manage any adverse effects of the bond. This addition surprised both Harry and Bellatrix. The court was acknowledging the bond as a medical reality that would require ongoing management, something neither had expected. As the sentencing concluded and Bellatrix was led away, her final thought reached Harry clearly through their connection, not exactly the wedding visits most wives would hope for, Potter. Despite everything, the gravity of the moment, the public setting, the years of enmity between them, Harry found himself suppressing a smile at her gallows humor. Whatever lay ahead, whatever complications the bond would create in their respective lives, one thing was certain: Bellatrix Lestrange would never be predictable. 6 months after the Battle of Hogwarts, Harry stood at the visitors' entrance to Azkaban prison, the North Sea wind whipping his cloak around him. The fortress looked different now, less forbidding without the Dementors, though still grim and imposing against the grey sky. "Mr. Potter," the guard greeted him, checking his name against a list. "Right on schedule. She's been moved to the interview room." Harry nodded, following the guard through multiple security checkpoints. This was his third visit. The bond specialists at St. Mungo's had recommended monthly contact to stabilize the magical connection between him and Bellatrix, preventing the deterioration that prolonged separation might cause. The interview room was Spartan but clean, a marked improvement over the cells where most prisoners received visitors. Another concession to the unusual circumstances, Harry supposed. Bellatrix sat at a simple table, her hands unbound but marked with temporary magic-suppressing runes. She looked healthier than she had at the trial, regular meals and the absence of Dementors allowing some recovery from the worst ravages of imprisonment. "Potter," she greeted him, her tone neither friendly nor hostile. "Right on time. Ever the responsible husband." Harry sat across from her, accustomed now to her sardonic references to their bond. "Bellatrix. How are you?" "Imprisoned for life," she replied dryly. "But the food has improved since my last stay." "Small mercies." The guard positioned himself by the door. "You have 1 hour, Mr. Potter. I'll be right outside." When they were alone, or as alone as they could be given the circumstances, Harry felt the bond between them strengthen with proximity. The silver marks on their palms glowed faintly, responding to each other's presence. "The healers say the bond is stabilizing," Harry said, getting to the practical matter first. "The episodes of bleed-through are less frequent." Bellatrix nodded. "Yes. I no longer wake up thinking I'm in your tedious little flat, surrounded by Weasleys and well-wishers." She tilted her head, studying him. "And you? Still dreaming of Azkaban?" "Sometimes," Harry admitted. "But it's less immediate now. More like remembering a place I've visited than actually being there." "Progress, then." Bellatrix drummed her fingers on the table, the silver mark catching the light. "And how goes life as the wizarding world's greatest hero?" "Still drowning in adoration." Harry grimaced. "I've been avoiding most of it. Staying with Ron and Hermione, turning down interviews. Working with Kingsley to reform the ministry." "How disappointingly responsible of you," Bellatrix observed. "No wild celebrations? No taking advantage of your newfound status to indulge every whim?" "Not my style," Harry shrugged. Bellatrix laughed softly. "No, I suppose not." That particular insight came through quite clearly in our mental exchanges. They fell into silence, the bond humming between them. These visits were strange, neither friendly conversations nor hostile confrontations, but something in between. Two people linked by magic neither had chosen, trying to navigate the reality of their connection. "I've been remembering more," Bellatrix said suddenly. "About before. Before Azkaban. Before the Dark Lord." Harry looked up, surprised by the voluntary disclosure. "What kind of memories?" "My sisters," she replied, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. "Andromeda. Narcissa. We were close once, before everything. Before choices were made." Through the bond, Harry caught glimpses of 3 dark-haired girls running through gardens, sharing secrets, protecting each other from stern parents with exacting standards. "Andromeda visits Teddy regularly," Harry said, referring to his godson, Remus and Tonk's orphan child. "She's raising him now." "Yes, I know. Through you." Bellatrix's expression turned contemplative. My niece's son. My grandnephew, I suppose. Strange to think of family continuing when so much has been destroyed. The conversation drifted to other topics, the ongoing trials of lesser Death Eaters, the rebuilding of Hogwarts, the reforms being implemented at the Ministry. Throughout, the bond between them pulsed with shared awareness, creating a level of understanding that transcended their spoken words. Time's almost up, Potter, Bellatrix noted, glancing at the enchanted clock on the wall. Any other pressing magical matters to discuss before you return to your adoring public? Harry hesitated, then decided to voice the question that had been bothering him for months. Do you regret it? Turning against Voldemort at the end? Bellatrix considered the question seriously, her heavy-lidded eyes distant. Regret is a luxury for those with fewer sins than I, Potter. She touched the faded dark mark on her arm. I gave him everything, my life, my sanity, my future. And in return, he kept me in the same ignorance he kept all his followers. That's not really an answer, Harry pointed out. A smile flickered across Bellatrix's face, genuine if fleeting. No, it's not. The truth is. I don't know. Some days, sitting in this cell, I think I should have died with him, defending him to the last as I always swore I would. She met Harry's gaze directly. Other days, I feel something like, not peace, exactly, but clarity. About what he was. About what I became in his service. It was the most honest she'd ever been with him, Harry realized. The bond between them pulsed with the truth of her words, with the complexity of emotions behind them. And what about this? Harry asked, raising his marked palm. Do you regret the bond? Ah, now that's a different question entirely, Bellatrix said, her familiar mocking tone returning. Being magically married to the boy who lived. The wizarding world's golden child. How could any woman regret such an honor? Harry felt her deflection through the bond, her reluctance to examine too closely the connection that had changed everything for her. We're stuck with it, he said simply. For life, it seems. These visits, this connection. Yes, Bellatrix agreed, suddenly serious again. We are. An appropriate punishment for us both, perhaps. You, bound to your enemy. Me, bound to my lord's destroyer. The guard knocked on the door, signaling that their time was up. As Harry stood to leave, Bellatrix caught his wrist with surprising gentleness. Potter. Harry. The use of his first name startled him. This bond between us, it's not what either of us would have chosen. But it revealed truth. About him. About me. Perhaps, in time, about you as well. Her words lingered in Harry's mind as he left Azkaban behind, the fortress dwindling to a speck on the horizon as his ministry-approved portkey activated. The bond between them stretched but held, distance dampening but not severing the connection that would link them until death. In the months and years to come, Harry would return to Azkaban regularly. The visits would evolve from awkward obligations to strangely anticipated meetings of minds unlike any other in his experience. Bellatrix Lestrange would never become a friend, never be fully trusted, never be forgiven for her crimes. But through the bond that neither had chosen, they would develop an understanding that transcended conventional relationships, a recognition of each other as complex beings shaped by choices both deliberate and accidental. And sometimes, in the quiet moments between their formal meetings, Harry would feel through the bond a whisper of Bellatrix's consciousness, not the madwoman who had terrorized the wizarding world, nor the devoted Death Eater who had murdered his godfather, but glimpses of the person she might have been without Voldemort's influence. Without Azkaban's torture. Those moments never lasted long. The weight of history, of crimes committed and losses suffered, would reassert itself. The fundamental opposition of their values and beliefs remained unchanged. Yet the bond persisted, a silver thread connecting two lives that should never have touched, creating a connection neither had sought but both had ultimately accepted, not with joy or gratitude, but with a grudging recognition that magic, like life itself, sometimes followed paths beyond human planning or control. And in that acceptance, imperfect and complicated as it was, both found something neither had expected, not redemption, not forgiveness, but understanding. The recognition that even in the darkest heart, humanity persisted. That choices, however terrible, remained choices rather than destiny. That bonds, once formed, could transform both the bonded and the world around them in ways no prophecy could predict. 5 years after the Battle of Hogwarts, Harry stood in the rebuilt Great Hall, watching as students filed in for the start of term feast. As defense against the dark arts professor, he had a new perspective on the school that had been his first true home, seeing it through the eyes of a teacher rather than a student. Professor Potter, Headmistress McGonagall greeted him, taking her seat at the center of the staff table. "Ready for another year?" "As ready as I'll ever be," Harry replied with a smile. His hand tingled slightly, the silver mark sensing something through the bond. 5 years of practice had given Harry greater control over the connection, allowing him to interpret its signals more precisely. Bellatrix was having one of her clearer days. The healing programs implemented at Azkaban, another of Kingsley's reforms, had gradually repaired some of the damage done by her first imprisonment. She would never be whole, never be entirely sane by conventional standards, but the violent mood swings had stabilized, the most broken fragments of her mind slowly mending. First years arriving. Her thought came clearly through the distance. Yes, Harry responded, still finding it strange how natural these exchanges had become. Sorting about to begin. "Remember to watch for the black children," Bellatrix reminded him, referring to the distant cousins from minor branches of her family who occasionally appeared at Hogwarts. She had developed an unexpected interest in tracking the family's continuation, perhaps her own way of connecting to a future she would never directly experience. "I will," Harry promised. The sorting hat began its work, calling out houses for nervous first years. Harry watched with the fond recognition of someone who had been through it himself, who now understood the tradition from both sides. The bond with Bellatrix Lestrange would always be there, a complication in his life that no one had anticipated when he first entered the wizarding world. His monthly visits to Azkaban would continue, the strange relationship between them evolving in ways neither could have predicted. But as Harry looked out over the Great Hall, at the new generation beginning their magical education in a world without Voldemort's shadow, he found he could accept the bond as part of the price paid for that peace. Not a curse, not a blessing, but simply one of the unexpected consequences of a war that had shaped them all. Thinking deep thoughts, Professor Potter? Nearly headless Nick floated by, interrupting Harry's reverie. Just reflecting on connections, Harry replied. The visible ones and the invisible ones. The ones we choose and the ones that choose us. The ghost nodded sagely. Ah, yes. In my nearly 500 years, I've observed that it's often the unexpected bonds that prove most transformative. He adjusted his ruff thoughtfully. Even the difficult ones. Perhaps especially those. As the sorting continued and the new school year began in earnest, Harry felt the bond with Bellatrix recede to its usual background hum, present but not overwhelming, a reminder of a strange magical accident that had changed the course of the war and the shape of his life thereafter. Not all bonds were chosen. Not all connections were welcome. But in the complex tapestry of magical existence, even the most unexpected threads could create patterns of surprising significance. And sometimes, in the unlikeliest of places, between the most improbable of people, those patterns revealed truths that might otherwise have remained forever hidden. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.